News, I'm Mike Hempen. President Trump is granting an exemption on his stiff new tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico for U.S. automakers. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
We are going to give a 1-month exemption on any autos coming through USMCA. Reciprocal tariffs will still go into effect on April 2nd, but at the request of the companies associated with USMCA, the president is giving them an exemption for 1 month so they are not at an economic disadvantage.
An internal memo obtained by the Associated Press shows the Trump administration plans to cut 80,000 jobs from the Department of Veteran Affairs. The VA's chief of staff told top-level officials at the agency that the objective is to cut enough employees to return to 2019 staffing levels of just under 400,000. 4 big city mayors testify before Congress about so-called sanctuary cities.
4 big city mayors say Republicans and the Trump administration are trying to score political points in the immigration debate by attacking so-called sanctuary cities. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer says sanctuary policies shield violent immigrants and discourage cities from cooperating with federal officials.
These policies only create sanctuary for criminals.
But at a hearing, the mayors of New York, Chicago, Boston, and Denver argued crimes committed by immigrants are being exaggerated.
Sensationalizing tragedy in the name of political expediency is not governing. It's grandstanding.
Chicago's Brandon Johnson. While there's no legal definition for sanctuary city policies, they generally limit local law enforcement cooperation with federal immigration officers. Courts have repeatedly deemed the policies legal. Sagar Magani, Washington.
This is AP News. AP correspondent Donna Warder reports on a Democratic congressman's protest in front of President Trump.
President Donald Trump wasn't too far into his State of the Union address Tuesday night when Democratic Congressman Al Green of Texas began shouting. The congressman was removed from the chamber and could face censure, but he says it was worth it to get his point across.
The president said he had a mandate. And I was making it clear to the president that he has no mandate to cut Medicaid. I have people who are very fearful. These are poor people, and they have only Medicaid in their lives when it comes to their health care.
Some 80 million Americans are on Medicaid, and just last Wednesday, Trump said, we're not going to touch it. But Green says Trump's budget calls for deep cuts in Medicaid. Donna Warder, Washington.
Stocks rally on Wall Street after President Trump pulls back on some of his tariffs. I'm Mike Hempen, AP News.
We got this morning. We are pumped up and ready to go. And we had some good old breakfast this morning. Got us all clogged up just like traffic on Beach Road. I was thinking something more about the cholesterol and all that stuff, and I looked at that and I'm like, oh my gosh, nightmare. Oh my goodness. Good morning, Marianas. We've got so much to get to you today. We're going to be talking all about our traffic. We got issues. We're going to talk about weather. Oh, my God. We got to talk about what they were saying about us in D.C. Holy cow. That's going to be a very hefty dose of what we do today. Also, we're going to talk about these bad guys who went to the mayor's office and cut a bunch of their tires for the trailers that they're using to improve the community. These dirtbags, I'm not sure who they were, but we got to get them. We got to get them caught and get them punished, so that they can not do that again or really seriously think about it, because the mayor's office does so many good things out there in our community. And what ended up happening, some guys went to the mayor's office. They got the trailers that they use in all the villages to pick up the trash and all that stuff, and they sliced all the tires. So not only can he not get enough coral, now he's got no tires. So we'll work on talking about that today, too. What else is happening today? We got a big press conference at the governor's office later as well. Today's a big CUC board meeting day. Holy cow. That's going to be later in the morning. And we also got weather. And in fact, we might as well get our weather going right now. because we've got him standing by in an island you may have heard of. It's called Guam. See if we can't get him good to go here in just a second. We're calling him. Oh, I hear him, and now I can see him as well. There he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Landon Aylett from the Department of Awesomeness, also from the National Weather Service. And we got him. He's actually in Guam this time. And it seems to be like that was a rarity for us getting a hold of you lately. You've been traveling all around the world.
Yeah, it's been a complicated 2025 so far this year with a couple trips to the East Coast to visit family and stuff, and to just touch base with family through some situations going on back home. But everything is all well for the most part. The highlight of the trip the last 2 weeks was, of course, the weather. It was fantastic. Of course, I'm getting alerts. They have severe weather going through the Norfolk, Virginia, Elizabeth City, North Carolina area right now. They have a nice squall line of showers and thunderstorms and some tornado watches and good action over there at the moment. But yeah, I saw 2 snowstorms, flash flooding, quite a bit of lightning, at least on my arrival into the area. And then it was pretty much dry for the last week.
Yeah, well, and there's all kinds of craziness going on over there from what I've been paying attention to. And I don't envy any of that for you guys, but it sounds like you're working through some changes, understatement, and I hope all that stuff's going well for you guys.
Yes, one day at a time. That's all we can do with really anything we do. And so it's one step at a time, one day at a time, and you stay focused on the mission. And so we're doing that, whether it's job related or family related. That is life in a nutshell. But weather-wise, I am excited to note that there are no advisories in effect at this time. We've been kind of with a prominent set of surf advisories or small craft advisories for much of the year. And that's typical for the dry season when the trade winds are up higher than normal, especially during the La Nina type weather pattern. And so that's what we've been dealing with. But things have subsided enough that we just don't have any advisories across the region. But don't let your guard down. If you're going to be on the waters, the seas and surf will be elevated because we do have a little bit of a longer period of north swell still coming down from the North Pacific, and then also the trade wind swell coming in from the east to the west. But looking at the CNMI, not much to speak of weather-wise. This is, of course, Saipan and Tinian right here in Rhoda. We have some spotty clouds and maybe some very brief light showers coming in, but that's all there is to speak of at this time. Otherwise, it's going to be predominantly sunny with some passing clouds and some brief light to moderate showers, and they're going to zip on by, but nothing else really upstream, and that's going to be the forecast. The winds are out of the east at about 12 to 15 miles per hour, so just not a bad day at all. It's beautiful, a stark contrast from what we had late last week with that shear line and the showers and thunderstorms. And of course, this is the infographic we put out just a few days ago showing that decaying shear line sitting just south of Guam. That has since dissipated, and we have much more fair weather upstream of us through the weekend.
Now, do we have a weather station up there in Pagan?
I'll say that again.
So do we have a weather station up there in Pagan?
You know, I wish we did, and it's all about the funding. If we had some data points up there, that would be phenomenal. We've had some sensors in the past, but they've deteriorated through the years and need replacing or refurbishing altogether.
Yeah, I was up there. The last time I was up there was in 2017, and there were some things from USGS out there all around the volcano area, and it was pretty neat to see them. But it would be cool if we had something up there. I only asked because you got Pagan written right there on the map. I'm like, ooh, maybe we got some cool stuff.
Yeah, I wish we had some sensors up there, and it's all about piggybacking on a boat or a helicopter that would get us and some of our guys up there to install some equipment. Hopefully with military actions in the region, maybe we can get in on some of that action someday, because always in meteorology, the more data you have, the better your forecast can be.
Well, that's a big plus. By the way, having your phone on a tripod like that definitely works. It definitely is a much smoother picture. Big impact.
It really is. And I used to have a gimbal, but one of these motors failed me sometime last year, so I got to get a new one of these days.
Is that a good one, or is that like a Temu purchase?
This was a very good one, actually. And I had it for several years. And actually, KUAM, they had one over here, and they did a story on some weather data and weather balloons. I think that was back in 2018. And I said, what is that? And I asked them where they got it. And so I ordered my own and loved it. And it extended its lifespan, because usually they have a fairly short lifespan with the motors, and the things kind of go to crap relatively easy. But this one actually lasted well, and I cannot find one that's like that. You see the handheld ones that pivot and stuff, and I really like this style better. So I'm always looking for getting new data, new equipment.
Well, that's a fun part about being a techie person. Hey, we have been enjoying some nice, cool temperatures. We were out watching soccer last night, where my son was playing. And just a nice, cool breeze. Just like I wanted to go play against those younger guys because it was so nice outside last night. Like the perfect stuff. Are we going to be enjoying that for a little while, or are those days done for us?
Yeah, that's going to be the theme for at least a couple more weeks. We're looking at temperatures at the Saipan airport. They've been holding steady in the upper 70s. And so right now we're seeing 79 degrees at the Saipan airport. That was as of 7 o'clock this morning, just a short bit ago. We'll probably climb it to the mid to upper 80s, around 86, 87 today for a daytime high. But that breeze out there will keep things fairly comfortable versus a beating down sunshine. And so we could see the winds increase again next week. We might have another shear line kind of bounce into the region, but right now the indications a week out don't look like it's going to be as strong as what we saw with the shear line last week. So the rain potentials is going to be limited. We're still looking at severe drought conditions at D2 on a 5-point scale by the U.S. Drought Monitor, of severe drought for Saipan and Tinian. And this is going to be the climatologically driest month is March. And so keep your guard up when it comes to outdoor burning. It's best to refrain from any outdoor burning at this time, especially with the dry conditions and those trade winds blasting over the island. So any fires that do start could be difficult to contain.
Well, I've seen mostly sunny, partly sunny, mostly cloudy, partly cloudy, but beaten down sunshine. I want to see that in one of the forecasts now. After hearing that, I'm like, that would be great. Beaten down sunshine today.
Maybe I'll put it in my email next week.
That would be excellent. That'd be really great. Hey, we got a lot of heavy news that we're going to get to today that I know we're not going to get you all swept up in, but it's great to see you, and really appreciate you making the time to get with us every week to give us our weather update. And it's kind of nice that we get to talk about nice weather for a change.
It makes my life a little bit easier. I can focus on so many other things when the weather's not acting up, because once the weather goes south, everything stops and your full focus is on the weather, and things get backlogged so quick.
Yeah. Hey, we got a lot of folks that reached out to say hey to you while you've been talking the whole time, and welcome back and all those kind of messages. So thanks so much for joining us again. And so unless anything crazy happens, do it again next week.
Yeah, I will be here next week. I was supposed to be in Hawaii, I think. Ooh. It's either next week or the week after, but that trip got canceled, and I was supposed to have possibly a trip up to Saipan in April, and that looks like it may be canceled too, and that's just part of the ongoing situation up the chain. And so hopefully I'll get up to Saipan one of these days, but who knows when that will be.
Well, optimistically, you can call that partly sunny, and and we'll see how that
Something
turns
like that.
Yeah. Hey, good news is, though, Lori from B. Hartfelt dropped me a message saying that she's here, so we're going to try to get her on the show also.
Yes, she is up there, I think, now through Sunday morning, and then she and I will get together Sunday evening. I've missed out on her visit so far. It's been a little bit of chaos over here since I got back. And so once she gets back to Guam, she and I will chat, and we'll start planning out our October event. And so I'm excited. I'm starting to look at some tentative dates for our 3rd annual construction here on Guam. And I've got the tower in mind, and I hope to get eyes on the tower itself, the real one, sometime in June or July. And then we'll start cranking out the finer details for construction number 3.
That's awesome. Can't wait to see it. Really, it's one of the fun things I look forward to.
Lots of fun. Yep.
All right. Well, Landon, thanks so much.
And hopefully you join us.
Oh, yeah. I got to make it. I got to be out there every October now when you guys are building something cool.
Yes.
Awesome. Well,
all right. Thank you so much, Brad.
You got it, Landon. We're going to fly up on the newscopter from here to there. So we'll do that. All right. Hey, take care. We'll talk to you soon.
See y'all next week.
All right. That's Landon Adlib from the National Weather Service, our favorite meteorologist. Just don't tell the other ones who are there. We don't want them to get all jealous and everything like that. But, yeah, it was great. We get to speak with Landon every week, talk about what's happening in our neck of the woods out here. And we're thankful that we get to have him in here. What a treat, an absolute treat. Again, and not waiting for the for all the bad stuff. We do have another call that we had lined up, and I want to make sure that we're able to get him and get him now. I think he should be ready for the call, but let's just see if we can't get him right now. Because I want to hear about this. Hold on, I'll put something in the background in the meanwhile. Let's see if we can't get him. That's so funny. Hold on. Come on. Come on. You know, I got his number saved in this phone. All right. I want to talk to the mayor, and I want to hear about what's going on and what they found out and how they found it and how we can help the mayor out in this thing. And then we're going to get into this heavy stuff that's happening in D.C. I got some stuff already queued up and ready to go, but I do not want to miss out on having this call. Hold on. It's so funny. It's so funny based on what I'm looking at in my contacts list, guys. All right. Well, I guess I'm not going to find it that way. All right. Well, let's get back to this. Huh. I'm not sure what happened. But I know where I can find it here. One sec. There we go. Should have just done this in the first place. Okay. Of course, it saves no problem, or pops up no problem, except for when I'm searching for it.
Harvey.
Mr. Mayor, hey, this is Brad Rosala. I got you on the air right now. Are you free for a minute?
Sure.
All right. And by the way, so people who are listening, I'm not just cold calling. I messaged last night to your chief of staff that we'd be calling in the morning, not just calling you out of the blue at like 7:45.
Don't worry about it. I woke up every day at 5:30 in the morning.
That's
so I'm
awesome.
fully awake.
So, Mr. Mayor, hey, the reason why we're calling is because we got that message about the vandalism at your office.
Yes, Brad. My staff discovered that yesterday afternoon when they to pick up the trailer to service the community, and they found out that it's about 7 trailers. All the 2 tires in each trailers were slashed. So we called the DPS immediately, and I'm seeking the help of the general public. You know, if they hear anything or witness anything, please let's work together and let's stop this type of activities, because this is very unacceptable in our community. So, and it's too sad, you know, for the young generation to hear this thing, vandalism, because, you know, I'm really trying my best, you know, to find ways to promote a safe community, safe village, and a clean island.
Well, it was disheartening for me because I see what you guys are doing. I see you out there a lot getting all this kind of stuff done. And out of the blue, you know, see, like, who does this kind of stuff?
Well, we have a couple of names on the list, and hope not that we're wrong. But again, we share that to the DPS, for investigation. Again, if there's any issues, please let's all sit down and come up with a solution.
Well, this doesn't do anything but hurt the community. You're trying to get stuff done. And,
exactly, Brad, exactly. And that's the reason why I humbly ask, the entire community. We're dealing with a diverse community here on the island. And I humbly ask each, ethnic community to please, let's all work together. Because what the mayor's doing is actually, trying to promote the community, the village, and a clean island. And those trailers, Brad, it's very vital, especially for those families that lost their loved ones. Our custom here, we have 8 days, 18 days rosary, and we serve them, on that trailers. So again, it's very vital trailer that my staff is really, taking out and service our people.
Mr. Mayor, when I first saw this, I thought this happened while they were at your location. Did this happen at the mayor's office, or is this at all the different spots where you left them?
It's in one area. We have this privately owned property north side of the mayor's office, Mr. Sablan's property, and they give us to use that, to stage all those trailers and equipment. So we're using that lot, with the good heart of Mr. Steve Sablan.
Wow. And somebody just went through and did all this stuff. It just makes no sense to me. I can't make any sense of why someone would do this stuff to you.
Exactly. And, again, I'm trying my best, to curb all these problems in our community by bringing the community together so we can all, promote this and stop this, drugs and all the criminal activities in our island.
Well, yeah, and you've got other trailers, by the way. When you talked about all those activities, one of the things I like the best is how you've got that trailer that's out there telling people, you see something, say something.
Exactly. And I just want to share this, Brad, publicly, that yesterday afternoon, after they released the information out in their social media, one company in Waterai, at an auto shop, and, he called my office that he's willing to donate a pair of tires to replace that trailer.
Wow. And
there's another tire shop in Salampio that called my staff again that is willing to donate 4 tires to help the mayor. So look at this, the business were thoughts on this thing because, like what you said, the mayor is very exposed out there in the community, servicing the people.
And I love that they are already trying to help you out. Now, how many trailers is it all together?
The one day criminal mischief?
Yeah.
It's a total of 7 trailers. So each trailer's got 2 tires.
Wow.
So
Jeez.
that's total of 14 tires.
Well, at least you got 6 more. Now we need 8 more tires to help get you up and running. And again, this is the stuff that helps people in the village, in their communities, that now you can't do until we get these things replaced because of some brainless guy who goes out there and does this.
Yeah, I don't know that, but whoever did that, I don't know what's the rationale behind it. But, as a mayor, I'm just trying my best. I'm just trying my best to serve the people accordingly. This is a different mayor. I have a different vision, because I'm more towards the community, from the cleanliness in the village to a activity for the youth. I don't know if you notice it that, the business community are stepping on the plate on this Adopt a Place program. And recently we just ribbon cutting a basketball court in Cobleville, And it really shows that the community really, helping the mayor on the mayor's program, because it's very important to have these programs in our community.
Absolutely, and you're out there doing it, and people appreciate it. And, man, that's why I'm blown away when I saw this stuff when it came in.
Yeah, I received a couple of calls last night, and, top businessmen, and they're very concerned about it because, like what you said, the mayor's just, trying his best out there in, service the people.
Well, you
because,
are.
They've been talking and talking, back then that, to promote the island, the destination of the island. Business communities are hurting. So what we need to do is let's all embrace each other, In order for us to fulfill this thing, visitors, they want to see us embrace each other. They don't want to come here and see an eyesore on our island. We're not, working hand in hand together. So those are the things that we must put on in place, to really fulfill what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll get you those extra 8 tires. Now, you still need 8 more tires. And they did every single one. It wasn't like it was just a random, like they just were walking by and got one. They purposely went through and got all of them.
It's intentional. Yeah. There's no sort of accident. But it's intentional to, destroy those equipments that, provide a service to our people.
Yeah, and that's the only people who are suffering. It's not your guys. It's the community now that's losing out. And they stab those things on the side, and you can see there's multiple cuts on some of these tires.
Yeah, Brad. Whoever did that, and if it's about me, or me doing the right thing, please come to me. Come to me. Don't injure my equipment. Don't injure my staff. Come to me. If you want to injure me, go ahead and injure me. If you want to destroy me, please come and see me or name the time and the location, and I'll be there. Because I have no fear into that for me doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can say, Brad, that, I'm so serious on this. And I thank the business community, for seeing this thing, and they're stepping on the plate to help the mayor. I don't go out there and ask, but, they see the value. They see the value, the service of the mayor. So, again, business community, I thank you so much, and I, looking forward to continue working with you all, to promote a better island.
Well, you keep doing it, Mr. Mayor. We'll keep supporting you for sure. It's a shame, but we'll see. We get the word out, see if we can't figure out where we can get you 8 more tires, and the right size tires. Can't get the monster truck tires for you.
Yeah, man. I know. I'm gonna be receiving a lot of calls, especially from your publicity, your station. I really appreciate that. Again, all I'm asking is let's all work together. I'm establishing a lot of things here. Implementing the youth sports. Meeting with the PSS commissioner, meeting with the DPS, meeting with the DCCA. To create this collusion for community action.
Mm-hmm.
So this is all the programs that are coming up, because I'm too concerned about activity after school. I thank the NAMASA, for continue to expand these sports. If you look at these soccer's, a lot of parents, children participating. That's what I love to see is, healthy lifestyle and away from any criminal activity, drugs temptation, all those things, so we can all promote a safe community, safe village, and a clean island.
Well, we appreciate it, Mr. Mayor. Thanks so much for doing that. And hopefully, this kind of thing doesn't happen again. But if it does, we'll be happy to get the word out for you again. And the other one is, for any of those businesses that want to support the mayor by hooking them up with some tires, we'll definitely promote them on the show to say thanks to them from the whole community. So whoever that is, if ask them if they're comfortable with that, I'll make sure to promote them, talk about the good stuff that they're doing to help you out.
Well, Brad, thank you so much. And again, I just want to make it clear that, we thought the business community, the government is nothing. So I focus, to build this, good partnership with the entire business community, so we can all drive together for a better island.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're with you.
Thank you, Brad, so much, for calling me and, allowed me to share this on the air to all the people that are listening to your station. And I thank you so much. I appreciate for all the help that you have given me for the betterment of this island.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for everything you're doing out there for everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
And I look forward to hearing about more of the good stuff that you're doing out there.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. That's the mayor of
Have a nice
Saipan. Have a nice day, Mr. Mayor. That's the mayor of Saipan, Mayor R.B. Kamatsu. He's out there, and he needs your help. They're looking to find out who the vandals are who struck their trailers. They flattened all of the tires, and it's a total of 14 tires that they need. They've got 6, so they need 8 more. You can reach out to the mayor's office and find out how you can help. They definitely would like to know who did it, but they, more than anything, they want to get back to work. You can give the mayor's office a call at 670-234-6208. They're open Monday through Friday from 7:30 to 4:30. And they're also open during lunch, so they're not closing. So if you've got any tips or if you want to help out somehow, give them a call at 234-6208. We're going to go and run some commercials right now. When we come back, we're going to talk more about some of that heavy stuff that we were alluding to earlier in the show about stuff that's happening in the States. So thanks. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Coach Derek Cutting, the owner and founder of Laddie Built Fitness. So no matter who you talk to here at Laddie Built, everyone feels that they are part of a family, part of a group of like-minded people. No one feels judged. No one feels like they're being teased or picked on or looked down upon because maybe they don't know what they're doing. They could be brand new and have no idea what they're doing. They might be overweight or really skinny and feel very self-conscious about themselves. But at Laddie Built, nobody judges here. And if you ask anybody here that might be in better shape than you or even not, but has experience in the gym, they will gladly help you through a workout and teach you a few techniques that could help you. So Laddie Built organically from day one, since the boot camp era, has organically grown this fostered environment of community and being a safe place, but a strong work ethic community of people that want to get work done. All I can say is that I put my heart and soul into it from day one. I treated everyone like that at the boot camp from the very, very beginnings, and everyone at the same time would treat each other like that from the boot camp era as well. And as we grew, as we got into a brick and mortar facility, we got bigger and bigger. I feel like people definitely just take this place as a home, as like their brother and sisters are working out next to them, not their enemy or not their competitor, So organically, it's just the vibe here is different. Everyone feels very, very comfortable, and I love the fact that it happened like that.
Paradise Dental's giving you the gas. Well, not that kind of gas. You already know that Paradise Dental has the most affordable coverage in the entire Marianas, and now we've got something special just for new customers. And now for a limited time, Paradise Dental is offering free gas vouchers for new signups for their coverage plan. If you sign up for a singles plan, you'll get a $10 gas voucher. If you sign up for a couples plan, that's a $15 gas voucher. And if you sign up for the whole family plan, that's a $20 gas voucher right after your first visit. So hurry down to Paradise Dental and sign up for the CNMI's most affordable dental coverage today. These gas vouchers are limited, and with smiles like these, you know they're going to go fast. Marianas. It is 8:03 in the morning, and no, that is not previously viewed footage. It is still like that out here on Beach Road in Olei. Yes, thank you, PPPC, for giving us the fastest traffic that we've had since we had dirt roads and Jeeps out here in the Marianas. Nobody is particularly happy about how this stuff is going, but that is just what we're in for. Apparently, they re-scraped that top layer because it was not perfectly flat, and they're going to relay that layer of asphalt to make sure that they can work well together. Yeah, they had the grader out there scraping off portions of that first bit of pavement. It's like we're going backwards more than anything. Like, what are they doing? And it's been like this all week. Well, anyway, folks, I'll tell you what, we're looking at traffic right now, and that is exactly how it is, all the way down past the gym. You can see it for yourself right now. Folks going in either direction on Beach Road is not going to be fast. It's like this all the way down to Minachamatao on Beach Road, and again in both directions. So that's it. Over there, in fact, here let's give you a little look at it too, so you guys can actually see what we're looking at. But over there at the intersection that matters, where connections matter, it's a little bit slow as well. Over at I-T&E, people coming down the hill from the college, it's going to be stretched out a lot longer if you're trying to get up there as well. So that's going to be a slow go, but none slower than what's going on Beach Road right out in front of our office. That is the Saipan slow part. Yes, we win the award for going slow in front of our office. Hooray. So maybe we're the take it easy place. Anyway, it's slow going north all the way from Chalumpiao as well. Once you get over there by the mobile station there in Chalumpiao, it's going to be a slow go. How about Guangdong Hardware? Guangdong Hardware, it just looks like three sides of the intersection are slow. Normally it's slow over there by Knapp, but it's not that bad today. It's also pretty smooth over there in San Vicente, Dandan, where two worlds collide. It's actually pretty sweet. How about the rest of it? Oh, I'll just minimize the screen by mistake. We're just scrolling around the island, taking a look. It looks good over there by Cagman. Of course, it's getting later now. It's 8 o'clock. You guys should already be there. It looks like it was a little slow coming down the hill from Capitol Hill, and a little bit of congestion over there by Ena's Kitchen. Not a bad time to get out there. Can you imagine if you had them at Ena's Kitchen breakfast? Imagine how good that would be. Oh, my God. The fried pork with eggs and rice. Oh, my God. I'm just getting a smile just thinking about it right now. All right, it's a little slow over there at the tennis court intersection on Middle Road as well. Folks coming down the hill from Navy Hill and then going north and south along Middle Road. A little congestion. Also over there by Garapan Elementary School. Looks like most of the drop-offs are done already, but it's still a little bit slow. Going over by the NMI Museum, again, we're through the worst of it, but then everything south of the museum, it looks like it's going to be slow. All the way from the museum up to Rocksteady Shop is going to be a little creeper. All the way down, it's also slow by McDonald's because people are trying to get in there and get their breakfast started. And then you just see the parade of sadness, which is the traffic out in front of us here. Look at, and there's a police officer right there trying to get by. All right, at least that guy pulled over. There's one good driver out there in the Marianas, and we just saw him. All right, we are going to start talking about the big stuff now. But before we do have the update from the Associated Press. But man, we were listening to the heavy stuff that was being delivered at U.S. Congress today. And my goodness, they were talking about China in the Pacific, not the people we want to see. Nope, they're tariffs and peddling influence. We're going to talk about all that in just a moment. But first, here's the latest from the Associated Press.
AP News, I'm Mike Hempen. President Trump is giving U.S. automakers a brief exemption from his tariffs on Canadian and Mexican products.
Amid worries the president's trade war could crush domestic manufacturing,
The president is giving them an exemption for 1 month so they are not at an economic disadvantage.
spokeswoman Caroline Levitt says that's at the request of the big three automakers, Ford, GM, and Stellantis. The White House had insisted there would be no exemptions from tariffs. The fast shift reflects that the tariffs have both alienated allies and fueled fears at home of higher prices. The president's commerce chief has suggested the U.S. is looking to meet Canada and Mexico in the middle, and the president spoke today with Canadian leader Justin Trudeau. But a senior Canadian official says Trudeau will not lift Canada's retaliatory tariffs, while the president still taxes Canadian imports. Sagar Magani, Washington.
U.S. stocks climbed today after Trump temporarily pulled back on some of his tariffs. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ each rose by more than 1%. The Dow climbed 485 points, just over 1%. The Department of Veteran Affairs is planning a reorganization that includes cutting over 80,000 jobs. That's according to an internal memo obtained by the Associated Press. 8 leaders are members of a Chinese hacking company, have been charged along with 2 Chinese law enforcement officers in a global cyber espionage campaign that targeted dissidents, news organizations, and U.S. agencies. The Justice Department says this was a hacking-for-hire ecosystem in China, in which private companies and contractors are paid by the Chinese government to target victims of particular interest to Beijing. This is AP News. The only nuclear power in the European Union is considering how to protect the continent from Russia.
French President Emmanuel Macron says he'll confer with European allies on using his country's nuclear deterrent to protect Europe in the face of threats from Russia. Macron said in a TV address that Russia is a threat to France and Europe, and that he's decided to open the strategic debate on the protection of our allies on the European continent by our deterrent. Macron says France's nuclear weapons would remain in the hands of only France. A special summit begins in Brussels Thursday, in which EU leaders will address the issue of nuclear deterrence. I'm Donna Warder.
A federal judge is preventing the Trump administration from dramatically cutting medical research funding. Scientists say this policy would endanger patients and delay new life-saving discoveries. The new National Institutes of Health policy would strip research groups of hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm Mike Hempen, AP News.
All right, welcome back. We are done with the AP News, at least until 9 o'clock, and now we can start moving in to some of the other heavy stuff that we could talk about. By the way, you can see it on there right now. We got the RFPs are going. There's a couple of projects that are going on. One's going on with, you can see it right there, that's for the Office of Broadband Policy and Development. That's pretty cool. And that one's going to wrap up. The last day that you can call them for questions about this RFP is on March 7th. So you got till tomorrow. But the RFP actually closes the following week. But you can send them an email or reach out to them by tomorrow, and that's the big deal. Also, there is a position of headmaster open at Saipan International School, and we've got the information on there as well. These are things you can find on our page already and on our Instagram, but we've actually got it right there during the broadcast as well. It's something that we're new, something new that we're offering and we're trying out. We're trying to see the best way to get a lot of information out there. You know, we're identifying a need and trying to fill it, and so far, it's working out. You know, people are jumping on board, and so I'm a big fan. That's the other one right there from the bead, and that is pretty cool because that's letting people know that there's going to be a big thing that's opening up in 45 days, and it starts opening on March 31st. Again, you can find out more about that by contacting them directly at bpd.cnmi.gov or email them at cnmi.bpd@gmail.com. But we're going to be doing a special post for that as well. It's already posted on Instagram and on Facebook right now, but we're going to do a special video that's going to go up just for these things too. So again, we're just trying to expand our offerings to make it easier for folks to get the word out for different things, and that's pretty cool. So let's get into some of the heavier stuff though, and by that I mean let's get into the stuff that happened while we were sleeping. There was an oversight hearing, and that's brand new. But this is for the Indian and Insular Affairs Subcommittee. And the reason why it's on our radar is because they talked about us. They talked about the CNMI. They talked about Guam. They talked about the Federated States of Micronesia. And they also spoke about all the island nations out here in the Pacific and the growing influence and threat of the People's Republic of China. They also talked about the DPRK, which is North Korea. And I want to share a bunch of that with you. And get your phones ready. You want to call and talk about this. This is a big one today. We're going to watch a lot of this stuff. We'll get all the good stuff. But they specifically talked about us and what we're doing out here and what kind of influence China is having out here. So it's interesting. We're going to start talking about that now. So let's go to my share screen so you guys can see some of this. And we'll get rid of this little music thing here. Down, down, down. And I want to, hold on. Want to get this full screen so you guys can see the whole thing here. All right, so let's get this started.
When we were engaged in that outreach, in those negotiations, in the visits, in the hearings, we heard over and over again about the threats that the People's Republic of China posed to our interests in the freely associated states and the Pacific territories. Through its Belt and Road Initiative, the PRC offers economic aid and infrastructure developments to shape political outcomes, to improve perceptions. And they're doing this not because they are an incredibly generous organization, but we know that they want to destabilize the relationships between the United States and these are most generous of allies. And that's why it's really frustrating when we talk about the importance of pushing back against the PRC, to look at the destruction of USAID, to understand that in a tiny office, the Office of Insular Affairs, 4 people were fired. You cannot say we are going to take the threat of the PRC seriously and then destroy and eliminate and weaken the tools that we have to fight their nefarious influence. So when this wonderful trip, and I'm so grateful for the chairman, and hopefully you'll get to go on one, because it was amazing, this trip that we did, and I met many of you through this whole process. We were there, and they told us about that. They told us about the trawlers who were trying to just cut up the cables, right? We saw the buildings where there were big signs proclaiming, China is building this for you, right? And when we then eliminate against without congressional authority, something like the USAID, which was itself doing much more quiet projects like the cable to Palau, that has now been frozen. We have now stopped, I don't know if you know this, Chairman, we have stopped the construction of a cable that would connect Palau underground. Key infrastructure, and key infrastructure that is also useful to us. When you visit, you will see our bases. You will see the way we depend on these to protect our airspace to identify what is coming over. And it is so crucial to us here because these are the islands and these are our allies that are closest to China. And when we start destroying the tools and the people and undermining it, what are we doing? And let me talk about the people. The Medicaid cuts that are proposed in the budget resolution would hit these territories incredibly hard. In American Samoa, 76% of the population qualifies for Medicaid or CHIP. In the Northern Mariana Islands, 36% of residents are enrolled in Medicaid or CHIP. So when we start undermining the VA, when we start undermining Medicaid, and we're not going to get $880 billion from fraud. I mean, anybody who repeats that knows it's not true. There's not that much fraud there. So it is going to affect people. And we are going to hope that we get 3 Republicans who stand with Democrats to say, do not do this for the many reasons, whether it's your own constituents or recognizing that we must maintain positive relationships and we must maintain the warmth of the friendship and the warmth of the alliance that we have with the people of the territories and in the Blue Continent. I look forward to your testimony today in this Oversight Committee. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you very much, Ranking Member Ledger-Fernandez. The chair now recognizes the Ranking Member of the House Natural Resources Committee, Mr. Huffman, for any statement. Mr. Huffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I know I'm sometimes a skunk at the picnic at these hearings. I don't enjoy that. I wish it wasn't necessary. But I'm going to start off with something very positive and consensus-based. This hearing is on a super important subject, especially timely given the threats posed by the People's Republic of China and North Korea to U.S. territories and freely associated states in the Pacific. And I'll go further, Mr. Chairman. Your opening remarks were spot on. You absolutely nailed it, including the nuance about the difference between these tyrannical regimes and the people that they represent. You really captured it. Everyone here says that we care a lot about these threats and these people. However, and here comes the skunk part, the Trump administration right now is actively undermining efforts to address these threats through a reckless, indiscriminate approach led by DOJ, people that have never spent one day in public service or government and have no idea what they are doing. They're taking a meat axe to the American workforce in a way that is crippling the very personnel needed to safeguard peace and security in the region. And, you know, we heard all of this fawning applause last night from the cult section of the House chamber when Elon Musk was introduced and whenever DOJ was mentioned. But you know who else is really cheering for DOJ right now and Elon Musk? China and North Korea. They are thrilled, just as thrilled as the cult section was last night. The Office of Insular Affairs, which provides critical support to the U.S. Pacific territories facing unique economic, environmental, and geopolitical challenges, and the USAID, as the ranking member mentioned, are facing substantial cuts in funding and personnel to finance tax breaks for billionaires. We will hear our witnesses describe how the U.S. Pacific territories and freely associated states, because of their strategic significance, are prime targets for PRC influence operations ranging from propaganda and traditional espionage to more covert influence operations targeted at elites and public opinions. We'll also hear how the PRC is undermining relations between the territories and the U.S. federal government to exert corrosive influence in the territories and render them less able to defend themselves, let alone American national security interests. But what we won't hear, I hope I'm wrong, but what I think we won't hear today is Republicans from Congress standing up to what the Trump-Musk administration is doing right now to our national security interests, this dangerous, short-sighted attack on agencies that protect American interests and the U.S. territories from China and North Korea. The Trump administration has already fired more than 5,600 USAID employees and plans to eliminate a majority of U.S. development and humanitarian assistance abroad. USAID's humanitarian and development assistance underpins our close relationships with the Federated States of Micronesia and the Republic of the Marshall Islands under the Compacts of Free Association Agreement, or COFA, which benefiting communities and families across the Pacific Islands also find quite important, quite existential. Under COFA, USAID leads U.S. disaster response efforts and has invested nearly $100 million in disaster relief and reconstruction since 2008. The PRC government capitalizes on instability and natural disasters in this vulnerable region to make inroads. And the vacuum that will be left if USAID is allowed to be sacrificed by DOGE will give China a prime opportunity to swoop in and expand its influence. If the Trump administration is truly serious about bolstering our Pacific territories and our Pacific Island nations against Chinese threats and North Korean threats, they sure have a funny way of showing it. Decapitating the one agency that projects American influence abroad through developmental assistance and soft power, which are our best tools for countering Chinese and North Korean encroachment across the Pacific. This is just a self-inflicted wound. So it is time for my Republican colleagues to stop fawning over Elon Musk and DOGE and start walking the walk for the stuff that they say they care about, and start protecting U.S. interests. With that, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Huffman. Now I will introduce the witnesses for our panel. The first is Mr. Dean Chang, Senior Fellow at the Potomac Institute for Policy Studies in Arlington, Virginia.
And so while he's doing that, these are really great, by the way. I went through and saw a bunch of these this morning. And
Next is Mr. Francisco
the
Bencosi,
testimony that they're going to present is, it should definitely get people awake. But looking at the national headlines, they did not really cover these things. And that was more of a disappointment to me. Because, again, this goes with the whole thing about them not taking this whole situation seriously enough.
Here in the hearing record. To begin your testimony, please press the talk button on the microphone. We do use timing lights. When you begin, the light will turn green. When you have 1 minute left, the light turns yellow. And at the end of 5 minutes, the light will turn red. And I will ask you to please complete your statement. I will also allow all witnesses on the panel.
All right, so they're just about to give their part. Also, our representative will be on here a little bit later, too. Here we go.
Good morning, Chairperson Hurd, Ranking Member Fernandez, representatives. My name is Dean Chang. I'm a non-resident senior fellow with the Potomac Institute for Policy Studies. My comments this morning are my own. My comments this morning are intended to provide some context for better understanding of the Chinese interest in the Central Pacific and the threat posed therein. For the PRC and the United States, the importance of the Central Pacific region will only increase in the coming years. Taiwan and Western Pacific tensions are only likely to rise. There is little sign of abatement. Growing PLA, People's Liberation Army capabilities, will make operating in the Western Pacific within what's sometimes termed the first island chain more difficult. And indeed, in the initial phase of any conflict, U.S. forces' ability to operate in that area is going to be extraordinarily challenging. American resets and greater focus will only further lead to the need for expanded infrastructure in the Central Pacific as a fallback position for U.S. security operations and efforts. Here it is notable that the Chinese competition with the United States is going to intensify because, in part, China has significant resources. The PRC has the ability to undertake not simply whole of government, but whole of society efforts, and therefore U.S. dominance in the region is going to be challenged. China has a variety of tools at its disposal. This foremost set of tools are in fact not necessarily military, but economic. These include aid, where China is the second largest donor to the region after Australia. Investments, as reflected recently in the Cook Islands. These often include tourism, deep-sea mineral exploration, and shipbuilding. China has also indicated to Fiji that it intends to invest in that nation's port facilities and shipyards. Security assistance. We are fortunate at this time that China is not yet a major source of arms to the region, but that is only for the moment. It is, however, employing a interesting form of legal warfare by providing significant police training to nations such as the Solomon Islands and Fiji. But above all, the Chinese military, the PLA, is increasingly able to present a very daunting portfolio of capabilities throughout the Pacific west of Hawaii. And here it is important to note that the U.S. cannot afford to rely only on the island of Guam, if only because there is only so much physical space there, and also because of the need, if one intends to operate in the face of these growing Chinese military capabilities, to have a wider dispersal and resilience in terms of our capabilities. A very brief survey of the kinds of growing capabilities that the PLA possesses begins with the Chinese Navy, the PLA Navy. It is now the world's largest fleet. It has 140 major surface combatants among its 370 ships. It has an increasingly growing range. This past week, we have watched the PLA Navy conduct live fire exercises in the Tasman Sea, separating Australia from New Zealand to such an extent that Australia had to issue a warning to airliners traversing the region. Notably, the Tasman Sea is actually farther away from Chinese naval bases than Guam is, reflecting the reality that the Chinese will be able to operate in the Central Pacific, in the waters around Guam, should it choose to do so. The Chinese Navy will be operating under increasingly the cover of the PLA Air Force, which also has an expanding range. It has benefited from the addition of significant aerial refueling capability. The Chinese have also demonstrated the ability now to launch not only cruise missiles, but ballistic missiles from some of its types of bombers. And as worrisome, the PLA Air Force is now fielding the kinds of electronic support aircraft, airborne early warning, and airborne command posts that used to be primarily the purview of the United States. This reflects a recognition by the PLA that modern warfare is not simply about shooting, but it's about finding and countering an adversary's command and control. Above all, the PLA relies upon its rocket force, the PLA rocket force, and on long-range missiles, ballistic and cruise, for long-range precision strike. In this regard, we see the Chinese fielding a growing set of capabilities, including the DF-26 intermediate-range ballistic missile, in fact, replacing the previous shorter-range DF-21. Both of these have carrier-killer capabilities. The DF-26 apparently is specifically intended to range Guam. The DF-17 hypersonic glide vehicle and the DF-27 IRBM, which has a hypersonic glide vehicle option, again, intended to be aimed at Guam. With regards to considerations for long-term responses, then, it is essential that U.S. facilities in the Western Pacific be more hardened as well as more dispersed. It is also, however, useful to recognize that while U.S. and Western governments typically do not build infrastructure, corporations do, and that with the issue of, for example, cable building, Google has been building cable networks across the Central Pacific, which does add to resilience. My appreciation to the committee and the subcommittee for the opportunity to be here this morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chang. The chair now recognizes Mr. Bruce Klinger for 5 minutes. Mr. Klinger.
Chairman Hurd, Ranking Member Ledger-Fernandez, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, I thank you for the opportunity to appear before you. My comments this morning are my own. North Korea's nuclear, missile, and conventional forces are a formidable threat to the United States and its forces, citizens, and bases in the Indo-Pacific. Pyongyang's history of provocation and intimidation is a consistent indicator of the regime's intent to achieve its political objectives through the threat or execution of force. North Korea is producing a new generation of advanced mobile missiles that, in addition to being more accurate, more mobile, and more difficult to detect and target, have an enhanced ability to evade Allied missile defenses. In 2022, Pyongyang passed a law that lowered the threshold for its use of nuclear weapons. The new legislation codifies a decade of North Korean statements that highlighted both a defensive mission for its nuclear arsenal while concurrently threatening a preemptive nuclear attack in response to even perceived Allied preparations for an attack, raising the potential for stumbling into a nuclear war. North Korea's diversified nuclear attack strategy includes, 1, targeting South Korean ports and airfields to prevent the U.S. from augmenting forces during a conflict, as well as threatening South Korean leadership and military targets to coerce Seoul to surrender or abandon a counteroffensive attack on North Korea. 2, removing Japan from the equation. Pyongyang could threaten nuclear attacks to intimidate Tokyo into rejecting the use of Japanese ports, airfields, and bases for U.S. and UN command operations against North Korea. 3, attacking U.S. bases in Guam. North Korea could use the Hwasong-12 liquid-fueled and Hwasong-16 solid-fueled intermediate-range ballistic missiles, both equipped with 2 variants of maneuverable warheads, to conduct theater nuclear strikes against U.S. bases in Guam to prevent the flow of forces and logistics to the Korean Peninsula. Pyongyang could also use long-range ground and sea-launched cruise missiles. North Korea has repeatedly threatened to attack Guam. I provided a compilation of these threats in my written testimony. Some examples include the U.S. should not forget that the Andersen Air Force Base on Guam is within striking range of the North Korea's precision strike means, and all the U.S. military bases in the operational theater in the Pacific, including Guam, will face ruin in the face of an all-out and substantial attack. In November 2023, North Korea successfully launched its first military reconnaissance satellite. Pyongyang announced the satellite surveilled Andersen Air Force Base, Apra Harbor, and other major U.S. military bases in Guam. And 4, threatening the U.S. mainland. North Korea has developed a series of ICBMs capable of attacking anywhere in the continental United States, including the Hwasong-17, the world's largest mobile missile, which may carry 3 or 4 nuclear warheads, and the Hwasong-18 and 19 solid-fuel ICBMs. Pyongyang's deployment of more missiles on mobile launchers with multiple warheads risks overwhelming the limited U.S. missile defenses protecting the American homeland. North Korea's future capabilities open dangerous doors. In a few years, North Korea could have 100 to 200 nuclear warheads, dozens of mobile ICBMs, and hundreds of improved survivable ground-based missiles, as well as submarine launch missiles. Greater North Korean nuclear capabilities could undermine the effectiveness of existing allied military plans. North Korea's ability to target American cities with thermonuclear weapons could inhibit U.S. responses or exacerbate growing allied concerns about the viability of the U.S. extended deterrence guarantee. What should the U.S. do? Affirm America's commitment to defend its allies. Washington should make absolutely clear to friend and foe alike that it will defend its allies by continually reaffirming its extended deterrence guarantee to use all necessary force, including nuclear weapons, in response to a North Korean attack. Enhance strategic defense of the American homeland. The U.S. should continue plans to augment the current force of 44 ground-based interceptors to 64 by fielding the next generation interceptor, which has improved capabilities to better engage North Korea's advanced missiles. Augment U.S. regional ballistic missile defense. Pyongyang's expanding missile force increases the threat to U.S. forces in the Indo-Pacific region. Washington should augment the existing THAAD missile defense system on Guam, which is a critical node in U.S. regional military plans. The United States should deploy an Aegis Ashore system on Guam while simultaneously initiating an effort to improve the system incrementally with additional sensors and shooters, and complete modernization programs for U.S. nuclear forces. In conclusion, the United States must ensure that it can protect the American homeland and U.S. forces in the Indo-Pacific region against the growing North Korean nuclear and missile threat. Washington should coordinate with South Korea and Japan to improve comprehensive allied missile defenses. The U.S. and its allies must also have sufficient offensive capabilities to reduce the number of North Korean missiles that are launched. Thank you for the honor of appearing before you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Klingner, for that testimony. The chair.
All right. Now, I hate to stop listening to the seriousness to talk about something ridiculous. But that guy sitting behind him is picking his nose and eating it. I'm telling you. All right, let's get to and it's on video. It's bad. At first, it looks like he's playing with his mustache, but he's going in there, and he's not like doing something else with it. He's either rubbing it back into his mustache or he's eating it. Sorry, just watch this guy. This guy right over here. This guy. We're gonna make him famous, I guess.
The United States must ensure that it can protect the American homeland and U.S. forces in the Indo-Pacific region.
What's he doing?
Against the growing North Korean
What's he doing there? He's
threat.
Eating it.
Washington should coordinate
nasty
with South
bastard.
Korea and Japan to improve comprehensive allied missile defenses. The U.S. and
He's
its
going in
allies
for
must
seconds.
also have sufficient offensive The United States must ensure that it can protect the
There it
American
is.
homeland
He's
and
in
U.S.
there.
forces in the
Where's he go?
Indo-Pacific
Ah, he puts
region
it in his mouth.
against the growing North Korean nuclear and
gross.
missile threat. Washington should coordinate with South Korea and Japan to improve comprehensive allied missile defenses. The U.S. and its allies must
Caracas,
also have
that's
sufficient
right.
offensive capabilities to reduce the number of North Korean missiles that are launched. Thank you for the honor of appearing before you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Klingner, for that testimony. The chair now recognizes Mr. Francisco Ben.
We're going to do a video on him later, don't worry.
Thank you, Chairman Hurd, Ranking Member Ledger-Fernandez, and members of the subcommittee for the opportunity to testify before you today. Earlier this year, I ended my appointment as the China policy lead for the USAID, and prior to that, I was the deputy for the compact negotiations, which we worked closely with the subcommittee to negotiate and ultimately pass. I've been asked to focus my remarks on the impact of closing USAID has had on the Pacific Islands for peace and security, and I'll make 3 points. First is that presence matters to compete with our adversaries. The United States is at risk of ceding its influence in the Pacific Islands and repeating the same mistakes we failed to learn after World War II. The PRC has stepped into our breach and has exploited the United States' absence. In response, we spent the last 6 years saying the United States would be intensifying our engagement in the region, and we did so. USAID announced it was opening its office in Suva, Fiji, and established a country representative in Papua New Guinea. We also upped our diplomatic by opening up new embassies in the region. USAID was our ground game for strategic competition, a key alternative to China's Belt and Road Initiative. While diplomats would focus on high-level diplomacy, USAID would reach out to local communities and demonstrate American support in a tangible way. USAID programs were visible signs of U.S. leadership expanding in the Pacific Islands, oftentimes working alongside our military and diplomats. Gutting foreign assistance limits our ability to influence and address the challenges in the Pacific. The sudden U.S. withdrawal from programs in the Pacific, where we co-funded with our allies and withdrew without consulting or notifying them, leaves multiple partners and allies in the lurch. It is the United States, not the PRC, that now runs the risk of being seen as unreliable and unpredictable. The perfect example is Taiwan. In 2019, Taiwan enjoyed 6 diplomatic alliances with Pacific Island nations. That number went down to 3 in just 5 years. Not only due to Taiwan's expertise on development issues, but also because it helped expand its international space, USAID established the Pacific and American Fund, a 5-year, multi-year project co-funded with Taiwan that benefited 8 Pacific Island countries by providing grants on resilience, food security, access to water, health, education, and natural resource management. This was USAID's signature area of cooperation with Taiwan in the region. While China is signing new alarming development deals with the Cook Islands and threatening peace and stability in the Tasman Sea against our allies, Australia and New Zealand, Washington is withdrawing from the region. In the last couple of years, the U.S. started to invest in the region with an affirmative economic agenda to compete with China. For example, USAID partnered with Australia and Japan to support the development of an undersea spur cable, Palau's second, that will connect the country to the world's longest undersea cable and increase the internet bandwidth needed to spark greater economic growth. Undersea cables are also central to strategic competition, given the potential for the cable to be used for espionage and to cut off vital nodes of communication. Second, climate change also remains an existential threat for the Pacific. Sea level rise continues to be above the global average, and ocean heating and acidification are threatening to harm ecosystems and livelihoods. For many Pacific Island countries, this is the single greatest threat to the people of the PICs. In recent years, USAID had announced multiple climate initiatives, including the Pacific Islands Climate Finance Activity to strengthen the capacity of the PICs, to increase access to and improve the management of financing and investments to support climate change mitigations. Interconnected but also distinct is the propensity of natural disasters. The Pacific Island countries are one of the most natural disaster-prone regions in the world, and the compacts designated USAID to be the main agency responsible for disaster response. With the demolition of USAID, no other U.S. agency has the authority, expertise, capacity, or resources to respond to a natural disaster in the Pacific. We are one natural disaster away from the U.S. ceding one of the places where we had a comparative advantage in the Pacific Islands. Finally, food security also remains a challenge in the Pacific Islands as the region faces the triple burden of malnutrition combined with poverty, climate change impacts, which compounds food and malnutrition security risk. There's the PRC, which has the largest deep sea fleet with 17,000 vessels, the majority of which operate in the Pacific. One factor is illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. USAID was working closely with NOAA to support the civilian capacity of our partners so they can at least detect and counter unreported fishing. Destroying a crucial national security tool, the trust of our allies, basically overnight, has not made the United States safer, stronger, and more prosperous. It does not put America first. It puts the people, Republic of China first, and a Pacific prosperity and security last. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ben-Cosme, for that testimony. I just would like to briefly note for the record that Mr. Ben-Cosme was a political appointee in the previous administration and had resigned prior to the start of the Trump administration. Last but certainly not least, I want to introduce and recognize Ms. Cleo Pascal for 5 minutes. Ms. Pascal.
Chairman Hurd, Ranking Member Leisure-Fernandez, thank you. The Pacific territories are deeply experienced at geopolitics. All became part of the United States as a result of wars or strategic contests. Today we'll talk mostly about China or North Korea. 127 years ago for Guam, it was Spain. Then for American Samoa, it was Germany and Britain. For CNMI, it was Japan and the Soviets. By the 1920s, once the Japanese mandate took shape in what's now CNMI and the FAS, it was clear that if a hostile power had control of the Central Pacific, America was not safe. Strategists talk of Mackinder's 1904 heartland theory, that the Eurasian landmass is the geopolitical pivot. It sort of comes down from the center of Russia and China, and control there determines the direction of the world. With evolutions in naval power and the battle for systems between the US and China, a case can now be made that it's the Oceania heartland that determines the direction of the Indo-Pacific, if not the world. The strategic core of Oceania is the US territories and the FAS. For the last 80 years, the Oceania heartland has mostly been a model of a free and open Indo-Pacific benefiting countries worldwide. China, however, sees things differently. It wants to be in a position to reshape the world to its own liking, including being able to take the territory of other countries without effective opposition. We've known this for a while. In 2008, Admiral Keating said a senior Chinese official suggested to him, "You take Hawaii East, we'll take Hawaii West." China has been pursuing its goals in ways General Bronner of the Philippines describes as illegal, coercive, aggressive, and deceptive, known by its initials as ICAD. We've seen extensive and pervasive disruptive PRC ICAD behavior in Oceania. There are many examples from my colleagues, from the members themselves, and in my written testimony. China knows as long as the pivot of the Oceania heartland is not under its control, it cannot do what it wants to do in terms of expanding its aggression and its ambitions, including with Taiwan. So what can OIA do? Work both to block the threats while building prosperity. One won't succeed without the other. China uses the allure of commercial engagement with countries, but it doesn't actually want economic engagement to lead to growth. It wants to create economic dependencies. So any attempts at building real prosperity also has to block the expected PRC ICAD attacks. DOI and its OAI are leads in the American territories. OAI has less than 30 people and 2 are judges in American Samoa. Currently, there's no assistant or deputy assistant secretary. It has massive responsibilities for a highly strategic zone. My recommendations are structured to maximize the efficiency and build on Chairman Hurd's opening comments. On blocking, Interior Secretary Burgum has a seat on the NSC. Perhaps this NSC role could be expanded to oversee and coordinate the defense and reinforcement of the Pacific territories in the FAS, which are America's western border, as part of the hemispheric defense approach being adopted by the Trump administration. This could be done in conjunction with the revitalization of the interagency group on the FAS, which is co-chaired by the Secretaries of Interior and State. That could function to focus and reinforce efforts of OIA field agents could play an important block and build role by coordinating locally with other departments and with Washington, including the interagency, and informing via Secretary Burgum's office, the NSC. A key entry point for PRC ICAD activity is corruption. OIA could focus on technical assistance programs designed to counter corruption, waste, fraud, and abuse. The governor of CNMI has repeatedly asked for federal investigations into illegal activities and corruption. A few good federal investigators, perhaps even reservists, might provide the territories and the FAS with more security than any number of F-35s and make it more likely F-35s will be able to operate from there if required. Also helpful is the establishing an FBI field office on Guam and satellite offices in CNMI and American Samoa that can support counter-ICAD activities there and in the FAS. To better advise and coordinate, the territories could set up national security coordinators or councils. That's something Palau has done with great effect. In keeping with the America First investment policy, attention should be paid to proposed investments from foreign entities. Homeland should require all those entering CNMI to have the same visas as those entering the rest of the U.S. Building requires ground-level assessments, which could be facilitated by OIA field agents. The three core areas to focus on are the costs of energy, transportation, communications, all of which are prohibitively high in the territories. Some examples of the small things that would make a big difference are a waiver from cabotage, the establishment of a fast ferry service between Guam and Rota, hearings on the operations of United Airlines, work to unlock the potential of American Samoa fisheries, centralized tracking and oversight of federal programs. The PRC has made its trajectory clear. It wants to control the Oceania heartland, and it will destroy American communities and families to do it. The goal of OIA should be to ensure that the people of the American territories can build prosperity without the community and security destruction caused by ever-present ICAD activities. As American nationals and citizens, it's the least they deserve. Thank you.
All right, so that's what they did to get that party started, right? So they went through and heard from the heads of all those different organizations. But what was really interesting to me is how she mentioned specifically that our governor has asked for federal help in investigating corruption. And in fact, let's go back to it. See if I can find that spot.
Forming by Secretary Burgum's office, the NSC. A key entry point for PRC ICAD activity is corruption. OIA could focus on technical assistance programs designed to counter corruption, waste, fraud, and abuse. The governor of CNMI has repeatedly asked for federal investigations into illegal activities and corruption. A few good federal investigators, perhaps even reservists, might provide the territories and the FAS with more security than any number of F-35s and make it more likely F-35s will be able to operate from there if required.
So that's what she was getting to. So now they get into a little Q&A, and we'll hear some stuff. And in a few moments, you'll hear from our delegate, Representative King Hines, who gets involved in that as well. But this is it. I mean, you don't often hear us in the middle of this kind of a thing, and so that's why it's an important thing. We thought it was a big deal when we heard from one of the congressmen from Wisconsin talking about what's going on here in the CNMI and about China's influence, and now it's a big part of this committee meeting. And so we're covering it here. So let's see.
Thank you, Ms. Pascal, for that testimony.
Again, this goes to the Q&A.
The chair will now recognize members for 5 minutes for questions, and I'll begin by recognizing myself for 5 minutes. Certainly a number of eye-opening and sobering things we heard in that testimony. Mr. Chang, I want to start with you. You mentioned in your opening statement that the PRC poses a multitude of threats to Pacific territories. In your opinion, which of those threats is the most pressing?
Mr. Chairman, that unfortunately is a little bit like asking which child do you love the most. I would suggest that on the one hand, because the Chinese have more resources, they pose an economic challenge for all the reasons that my fellow panelists have noted. This is ongoing, this is every day, this is happening as we speak. As a defense security-focused analyst, I would say, however, that should it come to a conflict, armed conflict, the PLA poses a fundamentally different threat than we have ever faced before. It is more capable. It has a deeper bench in the sense that it has up and running munition supply lines. It will challenge us in cyberspace. It will challenge us in the physical infrastructure of information. It will challenge us in space capabilities where the Central Pacific provides key support. So in terms of day-to-day, they pose an economic and aid and diplomatic threat, but in the background, always present, is a looming and increasing military threat that is going to undermine the confidence of our allies throughout the region, both in the Central and Western Pacific.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. It's multifaceted for sure. Question for Ms. Pascal. How is the presence of illegal, unreported, and unregulated, or IUU, fishing by PRC fishing fleets in the Pacific territorial waters, how is that impacting the economy of these islands?
It's devastating. I mean, and that's combined with some policies that America has put in place, including in American Samoa, that have made it more difficult for the people of the territories to develop the economies themselves. And I'd also note that often the Chinese fleet has at least dual use, if not triple use capabilities. It has, we can see in the Philippines the way that the fishing fleet has intimidated other navies and coast guards, but also there's often a criminal element. So it acts for smuggling, human smuggling, drug smuggling, and those sorts of things as well. So it is a multifaceted, corrosive effect on the economies and the societies and the people of the American territories in the region.
So my follow-up was going to be, what other threats does that IAU fishing pose to Pacific territories? Sounds like you went through some of them: smuggling, surveillance, harassment, just general economic disruption. I assume potentially military, quasi-military operations as well.
So the way that China operates, things are often braided. So it'll have a commercial front. Oh, you know, we're just a commercial fishery, don't worry about it. Then it'll have a strategic component to it where they just happen to be hovering over cables, for example, or surveilling other activities. And then there's always this criminal element where there's horrific slavery on the fishing fleets. They're smuggling stuff, they're doing bad things. So because of that commercial, strategic, and criminal elements being all braided together, one recommendation is you go after the criminality. You start charging people. You start making sure that there is a cost for doing business with the sort of ICAD activity that the Filipinos have identified. And that will weaken both their commercial argument and their strategic footprint.
Thank you, Ms. Pascal. Mr. Klingner, can you talk a little bit about the relationship between North Korea and Japan, specifically the effectiveness of the potential nuclear threats to the country of Japan? How effective are those in terms of impairing Japan's activities and its coordination with the United States?
The U.S. has assessed for at least a decade that North Korea has nuclear weapons that could be put on missiles that could attack Japan. We've also seen North Korea has specifically threatened Japan, naming specific cities that they would annihilate if Japan were to engage in supporting the U.S. or the UN command during a conflict on the Korean Peninsula. So a Japanese prime minister would be faced with the decision of potential attacks on his city with nuclear weapons if he allowed the U.S. and the UN command to flow forces through the region. So it would be a very dire decision by a Japanese prime minister.
Thank you very much. I yield my remaining time back, and at this time I would like to recognize the ranking member, Ms. Ledger-Fernandez, for 5 minutes. Ms. Ledger-Fernandez.
Thank you, Chairman. And I think that as we listen to today's testimony, what is striking is our first two witnesses described in alarming detail the military threats posed by China to the United States, but that flows through this region. It is scary. You've done your job, right? But I would also note that many of your recommendations to this committee address issues with regards to what will our military do in response. And our House Armed Services Committee will look at that really quickly. We then moved down the line and heard from our next two witnesses about the other aspect of how China is undermining the United States' role in this region, and specific recommendations about that. And I loved, Ms. Pascal, your description of the turmoil of going back and forth between this country and that country and what it must feel like, which, you know, we have representatives here who know and whose communities tell them, what does it feel like when you were pushed and abandoned and you know, I think you said it, Mr. Bencombe, yo-yo, the yo-yo effect. And so the importance of creating sort of a consistency is really key. Would you agree, Ms. Pascal and Mr. Bencombe, that the importance of having the United States have a consistent approach and maintain its commitment, not just on the military, but on the soft side, the hearts and minds? Ms. Pascal or Mr. Bencombe, whoever wants to go first.
Absolutely. China feeds and fills in the void in unpredictability and in chaos.
And if I may, the role of the field officers from the Office of Insular Affairs are very important for that. They live in the country. They often have, in fact, one of the best just retired in the Marshall Islands, had been there many years, new people. And that is the permanent physical presence of somebody who listens and is in a position to be able to bridge the gap between Washington and 12 time zones away.
Yeah, it is a long way away, and it is, my eyes were opened both in the travel and then in the stories that were told there. But when you have an office of about 30 and 4 terminated, that ripple effect of the morale, and then the ripple effect of what must it feel like to be in country. We visited USDA programs, we visited USAID programs, we visited many programs where the agencies, as you described, Ms. Pascal, are working in collaboration to build that support. You know, and especially, you know, the Federated States of Micronesia have tended to drift closer to China, is that correct? And Palau is under attack, and their tourism is under attack. And so we need to think about what are ways in which we need to work to strengthen that. And Mr. Bencombe, how do we do it? And what does this moment, like, what are you worried about in this moment where there is chaos coming out of Washington itself? How is that impacting our standing in these states and territories?
It is hugely detrimental to our leadership in the region. As I mentioned, we're one natural disaster in the midst of cyclone season away from USA demonstrating it can no longer respond to something that historically and as part of our compact agreements, we are legally obligated to respond to the FAS, and where China has oftentimes used its military forces to demonstrate and fill in the vacuum in places like humanitarian assistance, undermining our credibility and standing in the region.
Ms. Pascal, do you also agree that maintaining, and you, in fact, I think you do, because in your recommendations you say, do more of this, do more of that, but would you agree that to do that more, you actually need the people to carry it out? Does it happen without people?
You need the people, and you need the linkage back to this town, so that the people have the backing that they need to be able to deliver again, it is difficult to underestimate how much effort the PRC is putting into destroying the communities across the territories. Because by destroying the communities, they can weaken the rule of law, and it's much more easy for their ICAT activities to operate and for them to exert influence.
Right, which comes back to we have a military role to play, but we have a really important role to play through Do you agree that USAID plays an important role there, Ms. Pascal?
Across the region, but we're talking about the territories kind of less, right, obviously.
Yeah, right. Thank you so very much. I've exceeded my time. I think I took 5 seconds of yours, Mr. Chairman. I apologize, but I yield back.
Thank you very much, Ranking Member Ledger-Fernandez. The chair now recognizes the gentlewoman from American Samoa, Mrs. Radewagen. Mrs. Radewagen.
Talofa lava and good morning. This is an important hearing for me as we are talking directly about the issues my home of American Samoa faces. So I want to thank the chairman for recognizing enhanced prosperity for American Samoa, Guam, and CNMI is vital to the success of the American model of democracy in the Indo-Pacific. So right now, my congressional district is surrounded on 3 sides by countries that have increasingly entered China's orbit. And in the past month, independent Samoa and the Cook Islands have signed major deals with China. And separating us from Hawaii and the rest of the United States is Kiribati, which has begun to further align with China. On top of that, Chinese fishing vessels have increasingly penetrated American Samoa's EEZ in conducting IUU fishing in the region. To protect United States sovereignty, and it's been mentioned earlier, we must develop the economies of the Pacific territories. And to protect American Samoa's economy, we need actually a permanent U.S. Coast Guard presence to deter China in the region. I have quite a number of questions. Most of them will be submitted for the record, but I have a couple of questions here for Ms. Cleo Pascal. What is the current state of critical infrastructure in the Pacific Territories? And would it be correct to say that the Pacific Territories have severe infrastructure needs and that, if left unaddressed, would become threats to national security?
That is absolutely correct. And its critical infrastructure extends to communications. For example, just so people who haven't been there know, when I land in Guam, I can't use my roaming. And if you try to turn on your phone, your charges go up incredibly high. It is everything from the ports to the airports to the cables. All of it needs a very serious reevaluation and support for improvement.
So, Ms. Pascal, would it be fair to say that support for critical infrastructure in the Pacific Territories is vital for fostering economic prosperity and that it should be a top priority for the OIA?
Yes, it is a key component of both blocking ICAD activity and building prosperity.
The PRC has recently signed a number of economic agreements with various Pacific Island nations. For instance, Samoa has signed a visa exemption agreement with the PRC to make travel easier for their citizens. Samoa is home to many workers in American Samoa who travel across the border to work in our industries, particularly the tuna cannery. At what cost and risks do these agreements pose for these nations signing these agreements with the PRC?
You've recently seen incidences in Samoa, for example, a Chinese national kidnapping somebody and shooting at police officers. There's increasing drug use and drug distribution. There's very limited ability, and this is something that we also see in CNMI, to deport people who are creating a problem, and so they sit there and create this kind of social destruction. It is extremely disconcerting. And I would just flag up that reliance on Australia and New Zealand in these areas has not been effective. There have been repeated reassurances from Canberra and Wellington, don't worry, we've got this covered. Canberra set up this policing initiative, but we haven't seen the results on the ground. And by grabbing that space and blocking direct American engagement, I think it's been detrimental to the people of the region.
Thank you, Ms. Pascal. Would you agree that these agreements come with strings attached and that the PRC can easily use these agreements as leverage to get what it wants? My time is short.
Yes, that's in fact the purpose of the agreements.
And would you also agree that it should be a priority for the U.S. government, including OIA, to remain vigilant on the potential impacts of these agreements for U.S. national security, especially for the agreements signed with countries in close proximity to the United States?
Yes, they're deliberately setting up footprints close to American territories in the FAS in order to undermine them for their own strategic advantage. And by they, I mean, of course, the Chinese Communist Party.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's a part that gets glossed over. Let's listen to that last question. And by the way, who the hell is chomping on those potato chips with an open mic? We got to go back when they go to the group thing so we can find out who that is. But listen to that answer in that question.
Thank you, Ms. Pascal. Would you agree that these agreements come with strings attached and that the PRC can easily use these agreements as leverage to get what it wants? My time is short.
Yes, that's in fact the purpose of the agreements.
And would you also agree that it should be a priority for the U.S. government, including OIA, to remain vigilant on the potential impacts of these agreements for U.S. national security, especially for the agreements signed with countries in close proximity to the United States?
Yes, they're deliberately setting up footprints close to American territories in the FAS in order to undermine them for their own strategic advantage. And by they, I mean, of course, the Chinese Communist Party.
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. The gentlewoman yields. The chair now recognizes the chairman of the House Natural Resources Committee, the gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Westerman. Mr. Westerman.
Thank you, Chairman Hurd, and thank you to the witnesses for being.
I'm pausing it just because I want to see who's got chips in front of them, because somebody's chomping on chips with an open mic. It doesn't look like it's our delegate. Scrolling around the table real quick. I can't tell from over there. There's no microphones on the far right side there. So I only got a couple of possible targets. All these guys are still on green on their microphones, so it could be them. Could that be Mr. Chang? I don't see the chips, but all right, anyway. So that's my investigative reporting.
Being here today, Mr. Klinger.
Oh, I found him. Hold on. Oh, man, sorry, I pressed the wrong button. But I just found him. Hold on. Right after Miss Radowagon's
from
done.
the ports to the airports to the cables,
Sit tight,
all
sit
of it. Currently setting up footprints close to American territories in the FAS in order to undermine them for their own strategic advantage.
It's
And by they, I mean, of course, the
guy
Chinese
with
Communist
the
Party.
beard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That guy right there. Here's our chip cruncher.
I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. The gentlewoman yields. The chair now recognizes the chairman of the House Natural Resources Committee, the gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Westerman. Mr. Westerman.
Thank you, Chairman Hurd, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. Mr. Klinger, North Korea has been increasing its hostile rhetoric towards the Pacific territories. How do you think this rhetoric and possibly actions impact the safety of Americans on the islands?
It certainly is an indication of North Korea's provocative behavior and its belligerent threats towards the region as a component of the threats against U.S. forces and citizens and allies, South Korea, Japan, as well as the American homeland. So certainly it is trying to intimidate the U.S. and its allies to not respond to North Korean coercive behavior or aggressive action if it came to that.
Thank you, Ms. Pascal. Kind of following up on Ms. Radowagon's questioning, the OIA does play a very critical role in fostering economic prosperity in the territories. Do you think it was fair to say that OIA funding is critical for the Pacific territories and it is important to ensure that these funds are used in a manner to meet U.S. interests and obviously doing that in a fiscally responsible manner?
It is foundational, and it would be particularly helpful if it's combined with proper oversight, so there's transparency and there's trust across the board that these funds are being used properly.
Can you give any specific examples how OIA activity has positively impacted the territories?
There are a lot of very effective technical training programs. In my testimony, I suggest expanding them out to be able to counter corruption, because corruption is undermining a lot of the other good efforts that are being made. So, yeah.
Maybe talk about how some of those efforts have played a role in countering the PRC's maligned activities in the area.
In terms of you mean specific funding to something else?
Or the ways that the OIA efforts have played in countering the PRC's maligned efforts?
Well, having those knowledgeable field officers in country and building trust and being able to convey information back and forth between Washington and the region has been essential.
All right, and again, the importance of the territories to the United States, I don't think can be overstated. Can you elaborate a little bit more on how the Pacific territories are vital to U.S. national security and the economy?
Well, they are the United States, and those are American citizens and American nationals, and they're being repeatedly targeted with things like co-panelists talked about in terms of the Guam killer missile, for example, or attempts to undermine their societies. They are a key component of the Trump administration's concept of hemispheric defense. They are America's western border, and as such, they are being heavily targeted by the PRC in a similar way to undermine American security as a whole, that you see a vast number of very odd people coming across the southern border, for example.
Thank you. Thank you again to the witnesses for being here today, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. LaMalfa. Mr. LaMalfa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. I had questions for Mr. Chang on the issue of Department of Interior and drones that they are in possession of that have been produced by some, I'd say, pretty questionable sources here. One is DJI, and the software would be from Autel Robotics. Forgive me if you talked about this earlier. I was at a previous stop for a little bit, but these are both, again, Chinese-based companies that are known to be high security threats. Autel is linked to the PRC in their military directly, and our own Pentagon has blacklisted Autel Robotics, citing this threat. So I wonder why in the world would the Department of Interior be using a product that our own Pentagon has blacklisted as being a threatening source of tracking whatever information might be pertinent that Interior is gathering or holding.
Congressman, I am certainly not in a position to explain the actions of the Department of the Interior. What I would say is the following, that first, it is absolutely clear that Chinese robotic companies, like most Chinese companies, are part of the comprehensive threat posed to the United States. Chinese national security law has made very clear, one, all data must be stored in the PRC. Two, that data will be accessed by relevant Chinese authorities, including the Ministries of Public Security, Ministry of State Security, and the People's Liberation Army, at such time that any of those Chinese entities feel that it is incumbent or necessary to do so. There is no right to privacy. There is no restrictions, certainly no equivalent to any of the safeguards that are present in our system. Third is that the Chinese have made very clear through things like Made in China 2025 that they intend to dominate the global market for robots and drones, whether it is desktop or whether it is larger strategic level counterparts of things like our Global Hawk system. All that being said, the Chinese have therefore succeeded through subsidies and honestly through efficient production to make drones that work, that are extremely inexpensive. And if I were to make a guess, and again, I want to emphasize I am not personally aware of how the Department of Interior makes its decisions, I would guess that they went with a lowest bidder strategy without necessarily considering potential implications of loss of control of data.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't expect you to know the whole ins and outs of what Interior is doing, but I guess as an overview, it seems probably a little dangerous that we would be having that department using this type of technology that's so easily absorbing information and sending it right back to PRC, right?
Sir, given the purview of the Department of the Interior, which goes obviously beyond the Department of Insular Affairs, the Office of Insular Affairs, the Department of Interior has knowledge of vast tracts of American land where oil drilling would occur, where other natural resource exploitation would occur. The drones would almost certainly be used to survey that land, and the Chinese would therefore be aware of, one, what is being surveyed, and potentially what areas would be opened for leasing and other contractual arrangements. Recent discussions about Chinese acquisition of farmland has focused on where that farmland is, not the amount, but the location, which is often very close to sensitive and strategic sites. I would suggest that that would include not only military, but also Department of Interior sites.
Thank you. Appreciate that complete answer. Mr. Klingner, we've heard a lot about USAID and some of the really horrific expenditures that have been pushed through that, and the efforts of DOGE to narrow it back down to something that would be really the original mission of USAID. What would be the concerns about that, and then the possible overall effect in reduction of efforts? Some are contending that we are losing our place in the South Pacific by not having full funding of USAID as it was.
My apologies, sir, but the USAID is outside of my area of responsibility and expertise. There are other colleagues at the Heritage Foundation who could respond to that much better than I. So again,
we don't have them here today, so I know the foundation's done a lot of work in that area. What do you surmise is the direction for that?
The overall direction would be that contracts have been let on issues that are not either in the best interest of the United States or excessive funding has been devoted to them.
Yeah. Okay. My time's already up. I yield back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malfa. The chair now recognizes the gentlewoman from Oregon, Ms. Hoyle. Ms. Hoyle.
Thank you. I yield my time to Congresswoman Leisure Fernandez. Thank
Hey, just real quick, we're gonna our Representative King Hines is going to be going in just a little bit. So so if you're waiting to hear from her, you're almost there.
Thank you very much, Congresswoman Hoyle, and thank you for attending the hearing. And as I've mentioned to the chair, I really look forward that we will be invited and be able to travel back and learn from our colleagues about what is happening, especially our colleagues who represent these incredibly important, I hate saying territories, but I guess that's the official word. A question was asked about the USAID cuts, and Mr. Klinger mentioned that it wasn't his area of expertise, but that there was others who could answer that. We actually have somebody who it is his area of expertise. So, Mr. Ben-Cosme, would you respond to that question?
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Every administration has the authority and power to set new priorities. And so I think what's most disturbing about these cuts is that it really takes the baby out with the bathwater. You can change the direction of priorities and types of programs that USAID does, but to destroy the entire development tool, to sell our offices or my previous employees' offices to the Customs Border Patrol, to lose generation of expertise, capacity, leadership in these important capabilities has a real detrimental effect to our national security.
Right, and I think what's really also important is, as Ms. Pascal noted, that the OIA is very small. And so when you have USDA, when you have USAID, you are increasing and supplementing the Americans on the ground building trust. And I would ask this, Mr. Klinger, do you believe it is important that our allies feel that they can trust the United States to live up to its commitments?
Very much so. That is one of the things that the U.S. should make very clear to our friends and foes, that we will abide by our treaty commitments, that our forces, not only in the region, but follow-on forces, would be there to hopefully deter, or if necessary, defend and defeat any attacks by North Korea or China on our allies or our strategic interests in the Indo-Pacific region. And
wouldn't you agree that trust is built by actually having a history of consistency, Mr. Klinger?
Very much so. We have had forces on the Korean Peninsula for 70 years, and recently the Trump administration affirmed the U.S. commitments, the ironclad commitments to defend our allies. And we saw that in President Trump's joint statement with Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba affirming our commitments to Japan, and then also Secretary of State Rubio has affirmed, and Secretary of Defense Hegseth have also affirmed our commitment to defending South Korea.
Yeah. And so I think that the real important thing is that when there is the yo-yo, when there is in different parts of the international stage, a swinging back and forth of who we stand with and who we will not abandon, that erodes trust. Because when you abandon one ally, when you engage in a tariff trade war with others, like Canada and Mexico, you are creating a sense of distrust in the United States. I also want to thank the questions that our chair talked about in terms of the importance of the office of the OIA. And I hope that the committee will support additional personnel and additional funding for what has been described as a really essential office. So I do appreciate those. And I yield back my time to Ms. Congresswoman Hoyle if she wants to add anything else.
Nothing else? Nothing further? Okay.
Nothing else. I yield again.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hoyle. The gentlewoman yields her time back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Guam, Mr. Moylan, for 5 minutes. Mr. Moylan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this important
hearing today, and thank you to the panel for all the information, professional information that you provide. This is all very helpful, and I appreciate your time and effort. More than 250,000 Americans live in Guam, CNMI, and the American Samoa. For decades, our islands have been critical for national security and regional stability in the Pacific. Moreover, Americans in the Pacific territories serve at a higher rate than anywhere else in our nation, me included. Guam hosts 3 key bases, which serve as a key logistical hub, essential for the movement of personnel and supplies throughout the Indo-PACOM. Additionally, Guam serves as the home port, hub for submarines and supply ships, playing a crucial role in determining the rising threats from PRC and North Korea. Additionally, OIA provides essential funding for the territories and freely associated states, protecting our economy and national security. And for Guam, these funding stems are critical for providing public service, increasing economic development, and protecting Americans in the Western Pacific. But despite this, many programs for the territories remain unfunded and have not been adjusted for years. We must work to increasing funding for OIA to deal with problems such as the invasive and stray animal control, IUU fishing, and counter-narcotics operations. And over the last several years, methamphetamine use has skyrocketed, creating a public health and safety crisis. And recently, we have even seen fentanyl enter our shores. We must take a nuanced approach to territorial policy making. These issues that we have in Guam are not the same we face in our neighbors. Just 60 miles north, one-size-fits-all policies ignores the territory's unique situation, and we have the potential to negatively impact our economies, education institutions, and healthcare systems. And just one final statement, the USAIDs is not offered to the territories. This is all international based, but it should be. And this is where we need the additional funding. So with that said, Mr. Chairman, I have no questions, but I wish to yield the balance of my time to my friend from the Northern Marianas, Ms. King-Hines. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman yields his time to Ms. King-Hines. Ms. King-Hines.
Do I still get my full 5 minutes?
Yes, ma'am, you do.
All right. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for the invitation or the privilege today of joining today's hearing. I'm the only representative from the Northern Mariana Islands, so it is my duty to speak on behalf of the Americans who live there. I will, in short order, be introducing a bill asking Congress for a $400 million bailout as requested by my governor because the CNMI is on the cusp of an economic collapse. And Mr. Chairman, I would like to submit for the record the CNMI governor's letter requesting bailout legislation.
Without objection.
I've been writing letters to every agency requesting to spare the CNMI from any cuts to grants or federally funded personnel because our economy is dependent on these funds and positions for survival. We may all be from the territories and share similar challenges, but our economic challenges are very different and unique to each of us. Our governor just refinanced a loan to cover the remainder of this year's fiscal budget. That budget doesn't fully fund operations. The police department on the island of Rhoda does not have money for gas because the budget doesn't fund operations for gas. And so the cops can't patrol there. Legacy businesses like the Hyatt have shut down. Duty Free Shoppers has just announced that it too will be closing shop. Every day when I leave here at 5:30 and the Marianas day begins, I field phone calls, and I go home at night, I field phone calls from more legacy businesses who are talking about shutting their doors because we don't have enough tourists to keep the door open. Our industry is primarily driven by tourists. The Commonwealth Ports Authority is begging for relief because of the current rate of tourist arrivals. It cannot sustain operations. We have Department of Defense activities that rely on the ports being fully operational for the ongoing training and construction activities critical to our national security. And this is why sometimes having these conversations are very frustrating, because too often Conversations about the CNMI and the territories happen about us instead of with us, from individuals who've never experienced life there. And too often, discussions about national security treat our people as a liability rather than an asset. We as Americans cannot be expected to stand strong if the CNMI is economically starved into collapse, which is what is happening now. People are going hungry, and when people are going hungry, they're gonna do stupid things. This hearing is about prosperity in the Pacific, an acknowledgement that prosperity does not exist there. And all I've heard since coming to Congress are proposals for more restrictions because of geopolitical tensions with China, restrictions to tourism that will only make things worse. I agree with everything that everybody has said on this panel. We are on the same team, and we agree that we must all do our part to address these threats.
Ms. King-Hines, Mr. Moylan's time has expired.
Okay.
We'll come back to you in just a bit. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Puerto Rico, Mr. Hernandez. Mr. Hernandez,
Thank
for
you,
5
Mr.
minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Pascal, in your testimony, you highlighted concerns that the PRC could influence the residents of Guam, American Samoa, and the CNMI to push for independence. A common line of attack that foreign adversaries use against U.S. territories and commonwealths is that any form of territorial status is undemocratic. Do you believe that Congress can enter into democratic relationships with its territories in the Pacific through, for example, a covenant like the Mariana Islands?
The beauty of the covenant is that it was widely debated within CNMI, and it was voted on by the people of CNMI. So that is a consensual relationship entered into with knowledge and dedication, and the people of CNMI are some of the most dedicated Americans I've ever met.
So the answer would be yes.
Yeah.
And do you think it's legitimate for territories like American Samoa to decide on their own that it's a fair trade-off, for example, not to vote for the President of the United States, but to have their own system of land management and be able to protect that?
Yes, in the end of my written testimony, I sort of describe how different everybody is. I, of course, didn't include Puerto Rico because it wasn't part of the remit, but they are all incredibly different. And American Samoa entered into the relationship with the U.S. as an equal negotiator, state-to-state relationship, and made their decision the way they did.
Thank you, Ms. Pascal, and I completely agree, and I really hope that this committee in the future takes all that into account. Self-determination is a two-way street, and the people of the territories and commonwealths have a right to decide their own future, and that should include any option that the people in the territories and commonwealths want to pursue in accordance to their history, their interests, and their democratic values. So I appreciate your answers. Mr. Benscombe, you mentioned we know that the U.S. has free associated states, it has territories, it has commonwealths, and commonwealths are not just plain territories. From a national security perspective, are the territories and commonwealths better protected from foreign influence than the free associated states?
Yes.
So my area of expertise is mainly on the freely associated states, but I should say that because of the compacts that were just recently renewed, we've been able to provide assistance which helps bolster resilience against foreign influence and from adversaries like China and North Korea.
And given the current political climate, would you say that the Commonwealths and territories financing is more secure than the free associated states under USAID?
So USAID used to operate in the freely associated states, and we did not operate in commonwealths or any territories.
Correct, but given the current political climate, do you think that financing and assistance to the free associated states is under threat given what's happening at USAID?
I do, and in fact, for 2 weeks, people at Interior did not know if the COFA funds were at risk because of the attacks on foreign assistance.
Right, thank you. With that, I yield back the remainder. Oh, I see. Let me see. 1 second. Yeah. One last question I do have is, it's been decades since the Organic Acts and the Covenant have been revised. Would it be positive for the relationships and the democratic nature of these relationships for Congress to engage with the territories and commonwealths to periodically revise and enhance these arrangements? Ms. Pascal?
That's a decision for the people of those locations. That's definitely beyond my remit. I'm Canadian. I have no say in understandings between Americans and their government.
Of course, but if they wanted to, would that be a legitimate exercise of democratic self-government?
Any discussion like that is legitimate. I would highly recommend at the same time that there be not operations, but there be an awareness of how outside actors will launch influence operations to try to affect those outcomes, and that can be countered very easily through transparency. So if we have a better idea of who is funding what on all sides, then it will lead to, I think, more transparent discussions on this topic.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman's time has expired. The chair now recognizes the gentlewoman from the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands, Ms. King-Hines. Ms. King-Hines, for 5 minutes.
I apologize for going over, Mr. Chairman. So as I was saying, this hearing is about prosperity in the Pacific and acknowledgement that prosperity doesn't exist here. And all I've heard since coming to Congress are proposals for restrictions because of geopolitical tensions with China, restrictions that I believe will only make things worse. And as I've said, we're all on the same team and we must all do our part. You know, since I've been here, I've been hearing a lot about birth tourism. And let's be clear, we all agree that birth tourism is a concern. But it's also very misleading to suggest that the CNMI has been lax on the issue. We are the only jurisdiction through the covenant who has taken real action, urging Congress to amend birthright citizenship for tourists coming into the CNMI, but Congress has never acted. Under President Trump, we partnered with the White House to enhance Chinese tourist screening, creating EVS TAP, a program delayed for 4 years under the Biden administration before finally being implemented. And today, I'm working to strengthen oversight of foreign investments. Yet despite all of this, I haven't heard from a single national security official, not even the Department of Defense over the last 10 years whom I've been directly engaging with, has confirmed that tourism from China itself is a threat. If it's good for California, why is it not good for the Commonwealth so that we can put food on the table? The only answer that I've been getting is that the biggest risk to national security is a collapsed CNMI economy. And that's why I'm here fighting to restore tourism from all markets. They can be from Mars for all I care. That's why I am urging Secretary Rubio to mobilize embassies in Japan, South Korea, Australia, and the Philippines to secure real support for other markets. That is why I'm pushing for deregulation, expanded labor access, and economic relief. Not restriction, as some of the written testimonies have suggested, but actual support that doesn't cost federal taxpayers anything. We can't compete with the mainland for investment or tourism. We don't have oil, we don't have labor, and we face severe geographic and economic constraints. We don't want the status quo, but one-size-fits-all federal policies leave us with no options. It's like putting baby in a corner, you know what I mean? And that's kind of the position that I'm in right now as the delegate. And so, you know, what is the proposal? Basically, I haven't really heard a proposal. I've heard proposals for restrictions, but what are proposals basically for supporting economic opportunities in the CNMI? And so this question then is to Ms. Pascal. In your testimony, you proposed requiring visas for tourists, including Japan and South Korea, which are two of our other primary markets.
I'm sorry, no, I don't. I think that people coming into any part of the United States should have the same entry points. And if you're Chinese coming into California, you need a visa. And as you said, tourism and Chinese tourism in California is just fine. So why would it affect Chinese tourism to CNMI? And just on this point of why PRC tourism is a threat, you just asked Palau. I mean, as you said, economic collapse is your biggest threat, and the PRC deliberately used tourism to try to economically collapse Palau in order to gain strategic advantage, in this case, getting them to derecognize Taiwan.
Thank you for pointing that out, and thank you for using Palau as an illustration of these influences, right? But what creates these opportunities for influence? Is it not economic collapse? Is it not economic vulnerability?
Yes, which is why you can do things. I mean, there are a bunch of recommendations. I did make recommendations, for example, look at cabotage, look at a fast ferry between Guam and Rota.
A ferry between Guam and Rota?
Yeah. I mean, there are all sorts of little tweaks that you can do that can provide sustainable sorts of development that are beyond the tourism sector, that help the people of CNMI in multiple different ways.
So has there been an economic analysis that's been, that anybody has looked at or reviewed or suggested to show that if you completely take out the tourism industry, that hole can be filled in order to be able to support basic government services?
So the idea isn't to take out the tourism sector. The idea is to isolate the sector of tourism that is incredibly unreliable, that comes and goes, that uses itself for economic leverage, for political and strategic advantage. The United States could decide tomorrow that no Chinese tourists can come into the US. And if CNMI has built up its tourism around Chinese tourism, it is going to be incredibly vulnerable. Other tourist sectors are, I mean, cabotage would greatly increase the chances of increases in Japanese tourism, for example. So, you know, for those who don't know this issue, in the US, you can't have a foreign carrier flying between 2 points in the US. So you can't have a Japanese airline that flies to Saipan and then to Guam. If a Japanese carrier could do that, that would greatly lower costs for the people of CNMI and Guam to travel in the region and take away some of that chokehold that United has, which affects all sorts of other economic growth factors, and it would increase Japanese tourism.
And all this based on an opinion, but not based on an actual economic analysis that assesses what the real economic underlying challenges are, like remote geography, cost of transportation.
Yeah, so CNMI isn't actually that remote if you can unlock the transportation in the region. If you can get out of that United Airlines chokehold that has on the region, you're actually not very far away. And you have access. Guam, for example, has all sorts of access all over the region, and you can build up other sectors like health. You know, people from the FAS need better health care, and there could be health centers and education centers in CNMI. The College near the Marianas could be really built up to be a comfortable place for the people from FAS to come and study and learn more about their cousins across the region.
Holy cow! Suck it, United! Oh, what a bombshell! Oh my God, this lady. She's Canadian, as she said, but she's from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Just put United in the crosshairs as far as saying, she said, the chokehold that United Airlines has on the region can unlock transportation and economic opportunities for everybody. I want to go back and hear that again. That was just friggin' bomb.
Growth factors, and it would increase Japanese tourism.
All right, let's go back.
That would greatly us. And if CNMI has built up its tourism around China, the idea isn't to take out the tourism sector. The idea is to isolate the sector of tourism that is incredibly unreliable, that comes and goes, that uses itself for economic leverage, for political and strategic advantage. The United States could decide tomorrow that no Chinese tourists can come into the US. And if CNMI has built up its tourism around Chinese tourism, it is going to be incredibly vulnerable. Other tourist sectors are, I mean, cabotage would greatly increase the chances of increases in Japanese tourism, for example. So, you know, for those who don't know this issue, in the US, you can't have a foreign carrier flying between 2 points in the US. So you can't have a Japanese airline that flies to Saipan and then to Guam. If a Japanese carrier could do that, that would greatly lower costs for the people of CNMI and Guam to travel in the region and take away some of that chokehold that United has, which affects all sorts of other economic growth factors, and it would increase Japanese tourism.
Damn.
And all this based on an opinion, but not based on an actual economic analysis that assesses what the real economic underlying challenges are, like remote geography, cost of transportation.
Yeah, so CNMI isn't actually that remote if you can unlock the transportation in the region. If you can get out of that United Airlines chokehold that has on the region, you're actually not very far away. And you have access. Guam, for example, has all sorts of access all over the region, and you can build up other sectors like health. You know, people from the FAS need better health care, and there could be health centers and education centers in CNMI. The College Near the Marianas could be really built up to be a comfortable place for the people from FAS to come and study and learn more about their cousins across the region.
Ms. King-Hines, your time has expired. Thank you very much.
That was
The
great.
chair now recognizes the gentleman from Utah, Dr. Kennedy. Dr. Kennedy, for 5 minutes.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and thank you to you and the ranking member for organizing this committee and putting this oversight to allow us as Congress to have greater insight into the threats facing U.S. territories and the freely associated states. I'm really appreciative of the witnesses for bringing yourselves all the way here to this place as well. We're grateful to have your testimony. I'm committed to working with Congress and the Trump administration to maintain military and economic security in the Indo-Pacific. And had a question for Mr. Chang. In 2023, a PRC-backed hacking group called Volt Typhoon hacked telecommunications systems in Guam. These hacks attacked critical infrastructure on the island, including those used by the U.S. military bases. So in our present day, is the PRC still actively attempting to launch cyber attacks against the U.S., and if so, in what ways?
Sir, in the wake of Volt Typhoon, we various cybersecurity groups and the U.S. government have identified at least 2 new Chinese-sourced attacks in just simply the Typhoon series. Salt Typhoon, which involved Chinese penetration of various U.S. telecoms, including Verizon and AT&T, to obtain remarkably granular data on various users. It is believed that this has included the cell phones of Vice President Vance and then President-elect Trump. We have also seen an attack labeled Flax Typhoon, Chinese cyber attacks on Taiwanese organizations. This basically is a form of living off the land where basically rather than introducing malware, they are using already existing tools, security systems, et cetera, built into programs. Those are just simply 2 examples simply from a particular family of Chinese hackers. More broadly speaking, there is no evidence that I am aware of with regards to a reduction in Chinese cyber economic espionage, Chinese hacking of various organizations around the world, not just the United States, but our allies, military, economic, et cetera. There is every reason to believe that the Chinese, if anything, have redoubled their efforts as the Chinese pursue what they term intelligenceization of their military and economy, which is basically promoting the ability of machines to talk to machines, going beyond the previous people talking to people and organizations talking to organizations.
Thank you for that very disturbing report. I'm sorry to hear that. So how do the attacks, outside of what you've said about President Trump and Vice President Vance, how are these attacks affecting our citizens that live in the territories or the citizens that live in the continental United States?
So with regards to the citizens in the territories, it basically means that military personnel, but also civilians, politicians, police officers potentially have their personal data being accessed. That in turn, of course, opens them up to potential recruitment as human intelligence sources, pressure. Because of the comprehensive approach that I mentioned earlier to Chairman Hurd, what that also means is that, for example, in theory, Chinese companies could use this to pressure their way into access. If Chinese criminal organizations were to access this kind of information, they too would potentially be able to exploit it. With regards to on the mainland, my understanding is that one of the things that may have been exposed through Salt Typhoon is access to wiretaps. not just legal wiretaps in the sense of criminal, but potentially intelligence-oriented wiretaps authorized under FISA. That would obviously expose intelligence operations, potentially sources and methods.
Thank you for that answer as well. So we know China is constantly undermining the United States by mistreating U.S. territories, allies, and stealing American intellectual property. That's why I introduced the United States Research Protection Act. This legislation removes ambiguity in what qualifies as a malign foreign talent program and ensures there are no loopholes in its language that could inadvertently allow adversarial nations like China to exploit American research and technology for their own benefit. By closing these critical loopholes, the United States Research Protection Act ensures that our technological advancements remain secure and safeguarded from foreign exploitation. It also reaffirms a commitment to protecting American taxpayers by ensuring that their investments in research and development are not used to subsidize the capabilities of our strategic competitors, such as the Chinese Communist Party. And Mr. Chair, I'll thank again these witnesses for coming and testifying with us, and with that, I yield back. Thank you.
The gentleman yields. Thank you very much, Dr. Kennedy. I want to also thank the witnesses for their valuable testimony and my fellow members for their questions. The members of the committee may have some additional questions for the witnesses, and we will ask that you respond to those in writing. Under Committee Rule 3, members of the committee must submit questions to the committee clerk by 5 p.m. on Monday, March 10th, 2025. The hearing record will be held open for 10 business days for these responses. If there is no further business, without objection, the committee stands adjourned.
All right, so that's where they're going to wrap it up. But holy crap, man, I'll tell you what, we are going to be some editing mofos over here. I got to go back. That's like just some of those statements. I think some of this is good for us to hear, living all the way out here, and hearing that the folks in the mainland, the way they view our situation, so we know how they feel about it. And how the folks from like all those think tanks that they had in there, and what their view is after they come out here and speak with everybody and their take on it. It's definitely, it's not the same old thing that we're used to here. And part of this, I got to say, like, not everybody has access to all this stuff. You do, I mean, it's out there, but not everybody's following this stuff all the time. And there's only so much you can get out of the paper. There's only so much that they're going to be able to put in like a 2-minute story on the news. So doing it this way is probably a little bit of a game changer for us, because you're able to see directly those conversations for yourselves and hear it directly for yourselves, where you don't have to go out and try to find it. And you're hearing from these guys what they think about the CNMI, what they think about Guam, what they think about our other territories and the other island nations in the Pacific, and how they're treated and how they view China, and how different it is from the way we have our conversations about it here. The local conversations that are happening are so different from what we're hearing there. Like when you listen to all of them were talking about China being a threat. Every single one of them. No one was saying that they're potentially going to be our pals necessarily. Not that we hate China, not that we're against China, but we aren't fans of the PRC for sure. But that unlocking the CNMI's economic potential does not lie in unlocking the door between here and China, which is exactly what those folks who are down there for those independent think tanks were saying. And it's an interesting thing right there. You're right. They keep thinking our problems are so minor. Guaranteed, they do. Compared to what's going on in the mainland, they don't think about us so much, and they don't think about us a whole lot in heaps. So it's great. Like we had our delegate out there saying some great stuff. Kimberlyn King Hines was saying some great stuff about like, hey, you know, our national security is rooted in our economic security out here in the CNMI. Absolutely right, 100%. And holy crap, we're asking for a bailout. Oh my God, we're asking for a $400 bailout. That's like almost what we got from the ARPA, like, right? I mean, like, that's not exactly ARPA level stuff, but it's pretty close. And if they just gave that to us, you know, like 4 years ago, how much better are we going to do with it now? Are we on that verge of collapse? Yeah, listen to it. But they're saying that we could get a lot of stuff out of it, if we do get it. But man, the only thing is, and I'm gonna go back and listen to it and rewind it. But like with our delegate there in D.C. saying the same stuff, like, "Hey, we need help. We're hurting. We need to get something. What are we going to do about it? Our governor is going to be coming to you guys for a $400 million bailout. But we don't want to ask the taxpayers for it. Just let us have Chinese tourists." I'm like, yeah, but holy crap, read the room. Like that group, that meeting right there was not saying, yeah, we can't wait to we're going to help you out by getting you the what you need economically from China. They literally were in a meeting where they're talking about China influencing through tourism and through business investments and through government investments and gaining influence and power and prestige in the region, and how eliminating USAID weakens the United States in the region for that same purpose. And we're gonna, I mean, to come back. Now, all I can say is that I hope that the people who are with the Department of Transportation don't pay attention to the oversight hearings from Indian and Insular Affairs Subcommittee, because that's, you can't have both. It's just going to sound a little crazy if we end up doing it. And you're right, Ray. I see that. Love the people, hate the evil. I mean, that's it. That's it. I think it's just it's going to be a very hard conversation to have. It's, we're barking up the wrong tree. If we get it, great. Like I know the Department of Defense is not against having Chinese tourists come here, but you're listening to these folks say something completely different. And one of the things I like the most, by the way, is Pascal's thing about United. Boy, what a smack in the face that should be. And her saying that, the CNMI and Guam aren't that remote if you can unlock the chokehold that United has on us. Holy crap! I love it. I absolutely love that. I can't wait. So when we're done today, we're going to be editing that and putting that out there for folks because that is quite the thing. Anyway, man, I've got a lot of stuff going on after this. We're going to run a couple of commercials for you, too. I want to say thanks to you guys for tuning in today. But I got to get some love to our sponsors. And folks, hold on. I don't do this enough. I put this out here kind of casually and stuff like that. But if you appreciate the kind of stuff that we're doing, I know we have sponsors and people helping us out and all that other stuff. And we're not looking for a $400 million bailout. But I'll tell you what, if you like what we're doing, take a look at the screen. You've got our QR code. You want to send some love to the NMI News Service, please do. If you want to keep this little engine chugging, keep that little dream alive, that's how we keep this thing going. So, go for it. Scan it. Send something over. Maybe it's a cup of coffee. And as much as we got good stuff out of this one today, like real good quotes and all that other stuff, I still have to braden it up a little bit because I got to do a video of Johnny Nosepicker in the background. I mean, he doesn't know that he was the focus. He was on that video, but that dude was clearly going in with a shovel. Hey, I have picked my nose. I am not saying I don't. The difference is that's where it stops. I do that as a method to get stuff out, not to put it back in your mouth. God, I feel bad for that guy. Oh, geez. Good times. I can't remember the name of the actor who he reminds me of, but only he's got the beard. But he looks like the guy. Was it from No Easy Way Out, the Kevin Costner movie? Yes, I mean, he kind of looks like that guy. Anyway. Peeling, you're going to call? Hurry up, do it, because I was going to wrap up. Wait, All right, you can give us a call if you're going to do it real quick. I want to get a couple of things out there for our sponsors too, but I wanted to do it. So I'm hanging on for you right now. Go for it. And I know you might be having a little bit of a delay because I can always hear myself in the background when you call. So I'm here for you. I'm here for you. Let's do it. Yeah, got a lot of messages that came in the meantime. Oh, got the call coming in. There he is. It sounds like he's here. The man, the myth, the legend. Is that Piling Gazemo?
Yes, sir. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. Hey, man, I got something that's been bugging me in my brain.
Yes, sir.
I've been thinking about this for the last 2 days, but I just want to, I'm not in favor of Biden nor Trump. But maybe we can start something and get a conversation going. But I want to ask our fellow people, how bad life was during the Biden administration? No? At least on our part, here on the island. How bad was it? No? What I know is during the Biden administration, he gave the cinema $1 billion. $1 billion. 400-some million of ARPA funds and other federal funds that total up more than $1 billion. So how much stuff was life during the Biden administration? We need to ask ourselves that question, and stop and we need to stop saying that Trump will make it great again. We've been great. The CMI has been great, but our political leaders are the ones that are messing things up. Even with that IPI went down the drain because they were not strict on enforcing what IPI should be doing and what they should not be doing. Went down the drain. Then you got in Japan Airlines. At one point, way back in time, they were bringing in Japanese tourists by the tens of thousands, and I know that for a fact because I used to work for Saipan Tour Service. That's STS company, sister company of Japan Airlines, Nikko Hotel, La Festa, Jiaopak. I know that for a fact. Non-stop, day in, day out. Flights were coming in, flights were going out. They're coming again the next day. You got by the thousands. Then our politicians messed up, and we got them mad, and they bailed out. They left the island. They shut down La Festa. They shut down Nikko Hotel. Jiaopak Tour Company went. All of that. Life has been good in our cinemas. It's the leaders. It's the leaders, and it's the truth. And please, my fellow people, stop saying that Biden didn't serve us well. You wanna ask what happened to your life? You ask our local government. That's the important thing that you should be shouting is what happened to the ARPA funds? Why did they make that Busy program? And it's not given out to the entire people of the cinema. Those are the questions you need to ask. And you ask them. But I guarantee you, they don't have the guts to come out and ask. Now they're asking for 100 million again. They've been giving our islands money, federal funds, everything there. From fixing the road to fixing our pipeline, our sewer line. It's all federal funds. come on, man. Snap out of it. I love you all. If I'm wrong, come in and say your part. But I know I'm right. I love you.
Hey, we love you, Piling. You're right, man. I'll tell you what, that we did get a whole lot of money, and for every little aspect of what we have, like for all of our different agencies, the hospitals, you name it, we ended up getting a lot of federal funding and all that. But you know, the question
everything. Yeah, they allowed casino, and they made a lot of promise. They bring that casino in. They said they're gonna improve CATC. Look at our CATC. Look what happened when that company came in. They made a lot of money. A lot of people got rich on that IPI casino. Look what's happening around. Everything is dying. Duty free is leaving. Hyatt left. Marianas Resort left. Come on, man.
Yeah, I wish it
you guys
wasn't
need
even.
to work up there. Yeah, and every time election comes, stop going out, and then you're gonna say, "Oh, vote for me, re-elect me," because I still need to do some more. So I want to make change. All of that crap of baloney, and you know, some of you guys know it that you guys are baloney. Stop treating the people of the cinema like that. Stop using them just to get a name, to become congressman, senator, governor, director. It's just a name. You want that name? Then work for the name. Be something with that name. Stop using the people. Well, and use their manpower to go out and support you and shout for you. And then at the end, you abandon them and you abandon your promise. That's the saddest part. I end it. That this is where I end. I'm tired. I'm not going to get involved anymore with this bullshit. Because I've seen ugly people do this. Where you devote your time and your voice because you believe in somebody, and then at the end of that bullshit thing, they turn around and they ignore you like you never existed, like you were never a part of their dream. Wake up and stop treating the people of the cinema like they're a bunch of idiots. Thank you, guys. And you have a good day.
Piling Gazetmo, voice of the people. Wow, man. You are guaranteed a good phone call when Piling is dialing in. Piling, thanks for calling in. And you know what's great about that is that it's not a regular thing. You know, a lot of people don't express their kind of stuff like that publicly. A lot of people don't because it's part of the culture. Oh, you don't want people to hear that you're the one who said it. That's why it's the anonymous comments that usually get all crazy and stuff like that in the like the varieties comment section, right? Which is kind of like the king of the comment section for the different stories and stuff like that. But you know, it's voices like that will actually get things happening, really get people moving, get things changing. If you really want to make a change, if you really want to do stuff like that, is something that is just great. So I love it, man. Thanks for calling every time. I love it. Absolutely love it. And man, when we were in Guam doing the show in October, Piling brought food over and everything too. It was just awesome. It was just great. So thanks so much for watching the show and being a part of it and getting involved. All right, guys. Do want to give some love to our sponsors before we get out of here too, because we're very happy to have them. And without them, we couldn't do this. Without this, I only get so much room to grow on this thing. I've been growing a lot right around here, actually. But if I don't get if those sponsors don't keep taking care of us, then we can't keep taking care of you guys. So, hey, by the way, we're going to be at the governor's office this afternoon. There's a press conference at 2 o'clock. And as we speak, the CUC is getting a public meeting going on, and we're going to bring that to you as well. But we're going to do it from here because I got a good link for all that stuff. Anyway, folks, I want to say thanks again for tuning in. I'll catch up with all your messages, hitting on the WhatsApps in a little bit. But before you go, make sure that you give some love to our sponsors. Did you know what's going on over there at Paradise Dental? You know they're still a big fan of Medicaid customers. And if you've got Medicaid, you're already covered. And they would love for you to walk in and get to know them a little bit and find out why they want to be your dental care provider. They can do it from when you're a little kid all the way up until you're Monamco. You could have the same dental care provider. They want to do that for you. Stop in and check them out on Middle Road in Guala. It's Paradise Dental Spa. Their phone number is 234-4040, 234-4040. You can even send them a text at 785-7305. You could send them an email, paradisedentalsaipan@gmail.com, or visit their website, paradisedentalspa.com. Oh, you think that's cool? Well, wait till you see this.
Got Medicaid? Paradise Dental's got you covered. Got you covered from the moment you walk in the door with some of Saipan's best smiles. Medicaid covers your fillings, your extractions, and your checkups with no out-of-pocket expense. And Medicaid covers all of your x-rays without any additional cost to you. So remember, if you've got Medicaid, you're covered. Don't wait for a toothache. Call Paradise Dental today. Come here often.
Hey, I'm Coach Derek Cutting, the owner and founder of Laddie Built Fitness. So no matter who you talk to here at Laddie Built, everyone feels that they are part of a family, part of a group of like-minded people. No one feels judged. No one feels like they're being teased or picked on or looked down upon because maybe they don't know what they're doing. They could be brand new and have no idea what they're doing. They might be overweight or really skinny and feel very self-conscious about themselves. But at Laddie Built, nobody judges here. And if you ask anybody here that might be in better shape than you or even not, but has experience in the gym, they will gladly help you through a workout and teach you a few techniques that can help you. So Laddie Built organically from day one, since the boot camp era, has organically grown this fostered environment of community and being a safe place, but a strong work ethic community of people that want to get work done. All I can say is that I put my heart and soul into it from day one. I treated everyone like that at the boot camp from the very, very beginnings, and everyone at the same time would treat each other like that from the boot camp era as well. And as we grew, as we got into a brick and mortar facility, we got bigger and bigger. I feel like people definitely just take this place as a home, as like their brother and sisters are working out next to them, not their enemy or not their competitor, you know? So organically, it's just the vibe here is different. Everyone feels very, very comfortable, and I love the fact that it happened like that.
AP News, I'm Ben Thomas. A day after 25% tariffs went into effect on imports from Canada and Mexico, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
We are going to give a 1-month exemption on any autos coming through USMCA. Reciprocal tariffs will still go into effect on April 2nd, but at the request of the companies associated with USMCA, the president is giving them an exemption for 1 month so they are not at an economic disadvantage.
On Wall Street, Sessutel reports
that raised hopes that the U.S. may avoid a damaging trade war. Relieved investors sent Ford stock 5.8% higher. GM stock rose 7.2%.
More broadly, the S&P and the Dow each rose 1.1%, while the Nasdaq added 1.5%. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says about 180 employees laid off 2 weeks ago can come back to work. Hai Panjwani has more.
Emails with the subject line, "Read this email immediately," went out to some probationary employees who got termination notices last month. It said that a February 15th termination notice had been rescinded. Haya Panjwani, Washington.
The Department of Veterans Affairs is planning what's described in an internal memo as an aggressive reorganization to include cutting 80,000 jobs. An appeals court has removed the head of the Office of Special Counsel, the federal watchdog agency, in the latest legal fight over the president's authority. President Trump's issued what he's called a last warning to Hamas to release all remaining hostages held in Gaza. That came in a social media post after a meeting with 8 former hostages at the White House. At the same time, the White House confirms U.S. officials have engaged in direct talks with Hamas officials. Powerful storms have been sweeping across the country. 3 killed in Mississippi, tornado warnings in the Carolinas, Florida, and Virginia. While in Texas, high winds and dry vegetation are fueling wildfires. This is AP News. In hockey, the Capitals are in New York tonight to play the Rangers, with Alex Ovechkin just 10 goals from matching Wayne Gretzky's NHL career goals record. Mike Kempen on his chase.
Ovechkin has scored more power play goals than anyone in NHL history. So many coming from the left faceoff circle that it became known as his spot on the ice. But his 2-decade brilliance comes not just from one location, but an evolution of his game. St. Louis Blues coach Jim Montgomery played against Ovechkin.
He scores goals from everywhere. And I think the true test to his intelligence and creativity is the fact that he's done it for so many years as the league has continued to change.
Players also credit the speed of Ovechkin's shot and his release that allows him to fling the puck at the net unexpectedly at times. Ovechkin has 884 career goals, 10 shy of Wayne Gretzky's all-time record. I'm Mike Hempen.
And I'm Ben Thomas, AP News.
All right. Well, you're looking down there at traffic, and it's still going to be slow. And that little bit of rain that started in Dandam made its way through Esgano, definitely made its way down the beach road over here in Olei and all points south. So that's how it is. So be safe and drive slow when you're heading through there, because you're not going to get anywhere as fast as you want to. So just take your time and get there safely. That's the best way to go. All right, guys. Well, it is 10:14. We're going to wrap up this morning, and I got some editing I got to do and have some fun with all that fun stuff. And man, I'm just getting a whole bunch of comments now from you guys, which is great. I want to say thanks to all you guys for tuning in. Thanks to our commenters for weighing in, and thanks for our callers for reaching out and letting us know what they think. We'll be back again tomorrow for Good Morning Marianas, bright and early. But we'll be back again this afternoon. Again, we've got the governor's press conference at 2 o'clock. So we'll be there, and hopefully you'll be there with us too. Have a great day, Marianas. I hope this is the best Thursday you've ever had so far. Take care, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good morning, Marianas. So many things we gotta discuss. Happy day, Tirawamian greetings. To Rhoda, Guam, Saipan, and Tinian. For all your island news. From a beautiful place with Pacific views. It's always so much fun on Good Morning, Mariana.